In a dimly lit room, a heavily built man in tactical gear sits across from a young woman. He leans forward, asking if she is the alchemist he's looking for, and then requests her name. She introduces herself as Alice. The man remarks that it's a great name, but his expression shifts as he stares intently at her. He finds it strange. He had thought his golem sensor was malfunctioning, but he confirms that she doesn't seem to have any mana. He continues, noting that she is the first person like that he's ever seen. He presumes that an alchemist like Alice would know a lot about magic and mana, which is one of the things he wanted to ask about. With a somber look, Alice asks what he wishes to know. He pauses, hand to his chin in thought. He murmurs that it's a long story. The scene shifts to a few hours earlier. The man, call sign Bomber, surveys a street full of vehicles through binoculars from a ruined building. He radios HQ, reporting that he has retrieved the chip, but has encountered a welcoming party and needs immediate backup. The response from HQ is a cold refusal. He is told to get out of there by himself. The radio shatters in the hand of the mercenary, now identified as Jack Aaron, who can only laugh bitterly at the betrayal. His bitter laugh turns to a snarl of fury. He growls a threat into the broken radio, promising severe repercussions for the one who abandoned him once he returns. Turning his attention back to the enemy convoy, he scoffs that while it's only him against them, they put on quite a show. Vowing to make them pay, he activates a device, which emits a soft beat. A moment later, a massive explosion tears through the street. Vehicles are thrown into the air like toys amidst the fire and shrapnel as Jack watches the chaos he has unleashed. He throws his head back and lets out a booming laugh. Through his binoculars, he had seen it all, declaring how entertaining his foes were and how they must have looked as they exploded into the air. He began his story, a grim smile touching his lips as he recalled his intention to give his pursuers a present they wouldn't soon forget. Inside the building, soldiers spotted him on an upper floor. Before they could react, the ground beneath them exploded. One man was caught in the blast as his comrades cried out in shock, realizing they were dealing with a bomber and his deadly traps. From his vantage point, he tossed more explosives into the fray, announcing that the party was just getting started. The soldiers below scrambled as the cylindrical charges clattered around them. The explosives released a thick, disorienting gas. The soldiers below choked and coughed, their eyes burning. Looking down upon the chaos, Jack coolly informed them that this was his work, his name as a mercenary. One of the soldiers desperately searched through the haze for his attacker, cursing him. A calm voice answered from directly behind, and before the soldier could turn, a single gunshot echoed through the room. Having dispatched the immediate threat, he bolted for the exit. The remaining soldiers caught a glimpse of his retreating form, shouting his moniker, Bomber. They pursued him out into the open courtyard, shouting orders not to let him get away and to retrieve the chip at all costs. But their pursuit was cut short as the ground erupted around them. Jack glanced back at the carnage, identifying his handiwork, landmines. With his pursuers neutralized, he reached his getaway vehicle and sped off, laughing triumphantly. He mockingly challenged them to send hundreds more men if they truly wanted his life. The surviving soldier could only watch in fury as the bomber disappeared into the distance. The frantic escape gave way to a quiet moment of respite. Under the night sky, at a deserted fueling station, he stopped his vehicle, the fuel gauge reading empty. He clicked open a bottle, the fizzing sound breaking the silence. He took a long, satisfying drink, a quiet exhalation of breath escaping him as he savored the moment of calm after the storm. He steps out of the damaged vehicle, concluding that it's becoming too conspicuous. He considers hitchhiking, but a sudden, intense ringing sound fills his ears, causing him to stop at his tracks with a look of pained confusion. A glowing magical circle erupts beneath his feet, its light crackling around him. He finds himself completely paralyzed, unable to move as he stares in shock at the phenomenon. The light intensifies, engulfing him completely. In a flash, his surroundings dissolve, replaced by the interior of a vast, stone hall adorned with towering pillars and ornate windows. As the residual smoke of the transport spell dissipates, he stands alone in the center of the hall, looking up at the unfamiliar and grandiose architecture. His surroundings come into focus: a grand throne room. Armored guards stand at attention, and from a high balcony, a group of nobles observes him with curiosity. He turns and realizes he is not alone. A group of bewildered young people are scattered nearby, shouting in confusion. At the far end of the room, a king sits upon a throne. The others question what is happening, wondering if it's all a joke. An older man in ornate robes steps forward, introducing himself as Prime Minister Valash. He welcomes them all, explaining that they are in a different world. He reveals that he summoned them from their home world to serve as a trump card in an ongoing war with neighboring countries. As one of the youths repeats the claim in disbelief, Valash confirms it, calling them great heroes who will become the swords of his country. Unimpressed, Jack takes a drink from a flask, dismissing it as a prank. The Prime Minister then announces his intention to immediately confirm their status. A translucent screen materializes before Jack, displaying his name, level 1 status, and 2 skills, Translation B and Bomb, making EX++. As the Prime Minister begins to ask about his skill, Jack mutters to himself that in a world like this, he supposes anything is possible. He strokes his chin, realizing that his translation skill is what allows him to understand the other summoned youths, whom he identifies as Japanese kids. This confirms it for him. They really are in another world. In the background, the The Prime Minister expresses delight over another hero's high level. He considered his bomb-making EX++ skill, musing that a world at war would likely appreciate a mass-murdering bomber. The thought brought a grim satisfaction. Nearby, Prime Minister Valash stared at the status screen in disbelief, exclaiming that he had never seen an EX skill, let alone one ranked A++. He immediately ordered a guard to fetch a specific item. In response, a box containing various powders, fuses, and casings was presented to him. Valash gestured to the box, explaining that they were bomb-making ingredients and that he was eager to see the EX rank skill in action. Jack Aaron coolly accepted the offer. He took the materials, glancing briefly at the other summoned youths who watched from a distance. With practiced ease, he began assembling a device, carefully pouring powder into a paper tube. The result was a simple gunpowder explosive. A display materialized, identifying the item as F rank with S power. Valash inspected the bomb, questioning if there was any real difference from a normal one. With a look of utter disdain, Jack crushed the device in his hand, declaring it trash. He explained that the skill only ensures success and provides buffs, which is useless for such a basic item. This dismissal sent the Prime Minister into a rage. He shouted that Jack possessed a hopeless skill with useless upgrades, pointing out that anyone could learn to make such a thing without any special ability. As the other summoned individuals were assessed, it was noted that one was only level 1 with no other skills. From his throne, the king asked for Valash's opinion. The Prime Minister, his face contorted with disgust, declared that Jack was the only useless one among them. Jack overheard, his expression hardening at the insult. Following this judgment, a royal official ordered the guards to lead him away, deeming a level 1 individual unworthy of their time. As soldiers surrounded him, Jack remained unfazed, laughing at their numerical advantage and casually mentioning he'd left his bag at a gas station. He turned back to Valash with a smirk, asking if the plan was to sell him. The Prime Minister confirmed he could be sold to the slave market, though he doubted Jack's worth. Jack retorted that many would pay good money to hire him. In the middle of his sentence, Valash struck him hard across the face. Staggering from the blow, Jack touched his cheek. Valash warned him not to think he could simply walk all over him. With a menacing glare, Jack threw the words back, asking if the Prime Minister truly understood the position he was in and threatening to fold him in half. Enraged, Valash vowed to teach him a lesson. At his command, the surrounding guards swarmed in, restraining Jack and beating him. He endured the assault, knowing it would be a mistake to retaliate at that moment. He would just have to endure it for now. He lay pinned to the floor, his face pressed against the cold stone. Above him, Prime Minister Valash loomed, questioning if some sense had finally been beaten into him. The minister warned that if his defiant attitude continued, they would consider a death sentence. Despite the pain, Jack told himself that patience was the virtue he needed most right now. As the minister spoke, the other summoned people watched from the side, their faces filled with amusement. Laughter echoed through the hall as they mocked his pathetic state, finding entertainment in his humiliation. Their scornful laughter ignited a spark of pure fury within him. His head snapped up, a terrifying glare fixed upon the mocking crowd as a single thought burned through his mind. They dared to look down on him. In that instant, a shockwave of force erupted from his body, violently throwing the restraining guards aside. The sudden display of power left Valash stunned. In the throne room, the mercenary shoves a young woman aside, roaring for his target to eat this. One of the summoned youths stumbles back, wounded and clutching his chest. Without hesitation, the mercenary raises a pistol and fires point-blank into the head of another terrified young man, splattering blood across the floor. He stands over the fresh corpse, guns still smoking, as the other summoned youths look on in utter horror. The mercenary glances down at the body, coldly remarking that he had warned him to keep his head down. His cold declaration is interrupted as armored royal guards storm the chamber, quickly surrounding him with their weapons raised. One of the guards curses at the intruder. He smirks, unfazed by the threat. At the command to fire, the guards unleash a volley of energy blasts that converge on his position, erupting in a series of bright flashes. When the smoke clears, he stands unharmed, holding the corpse of a guard as a shield. He taunts the remaining soldiers, asking if they dislike what happened to their friend, and dismisses them as level 1 pricks before lunging forward with a knife draw. He moves with impossible speed, flipping and twisting through the air as he cuts down the guards. The soldiers are stunned, one of them noting his incredible quickness. The mercenary, holding his bloodied knife, reflects that this is the strength of his level 1. Having dispatched the guards, his attention shifts to the throne. He calls out to the king, demanding to know who he is. Then he pulls the pin from a grenade, casually offering it as a gift before tossing it toward the monarch. As the grenade arcs through the air, he introduces himself with a wide, unsettling grin. He is a bomber mercenary, and the explosive is his business card, a demonstration for $1 million hiring fee. The king flinches in terror. A guard yells for the others to capture the mercenary, but it's too late. The bomber throws himself backward, shattering a large stained glass window to make his escape. He plummets from the high tower, firing a grappling line that catches on the stone battlements. With a confident call, he swings away, descending rapidly down the castle's outer wall. He made his escape with a grappling hook, zipping away from the castle wall. From a distance, one of the summoned youths watched in disbelief, remarking that it was just like a scene from spy movie. In response to his brazen attack, an order from His Majesty was swiftly relayed. A commander instructed the royal guards to find the otherworld bomber at any cost and execute him on sight, stressing that he must not be allowed to get away. Meanwhile, having put some distance between himself and the castle, Jack paused on a rooftop, rubbing his temple in frustration. He cursed, realizing the situation was getting out of hand, partly his fault for getting worked up, and was surprised the king was still alive. Looking down at the bustling streets, he noted the strange mix of horse-drawn carriages and modern cars, musing that he would have enjoyed a drive if he wasn't a fugitive. He then questioned the very need for an escape plan, believing it should be simple enough to leave the city. His first thought was to hijack a vehicle. Thankful that he still had his equipment, he considered the possibility of confronting heavily armed guards and taking their weapons. But then he paused, a moment of hesitation interrupting his train of thought. His hesitation turned to anger as he looked back towards the distant castle. He seethed at the injustice of it all. They had summoned him to their world only to immediately try and control him. He questioned why he should be the one fleeing. A grim determination settled over him. He decided there was a line they had crossed, a line one should not mess with. With a smirk, he resolved to finish what he had started, confident that it was entirely possible. Putting his new plan into motion, he ambushed a member of the so-called Revenge Party, delivering a powerful kick that sent the armored warrior flying. After incapacitating the rest of the group, he turned his attention to a surviving elven woman. Pointing his pistol at her, he demanded to know what was located up there, leaving her to stammer in confusion. She led him to a grand chamber dominated by a massive, floating crystal. The elf explained that it was the city's core, a magical tool controlling all the mechanisms of the imperial capital. In essence, the very heart of the city. A dangerous grin spread across Jack's face as he processed this. A heart, a core, he mused before bluntly asking if that meant he could blow it up. The elf stared in horror at his suggestion. She frantically explained that while it was technically possible to destroy it, it was an unthinkable act. The core was incredibly delicate and difficult to recreate, and its destruction could, in the worst-case scenario, obliterate the entire empire. She pleaded with the bomber, pointing out that his plan was outrageous, but he dismissed her concerns. He claimed he only heard the part about it being technically possible, and that a test was necessary to ensure the success of his bomb-making. With a sinister grin, he declared it was worth a try. He then clapped his hands together, activating a display above the city's core. It revealed the core's status as collapsing, with an immense power level and attributes, including remote detonation and city destruction. The elf woman could only stare in horrified disbelief. She desperately begged him to spare her, arguing that she had already helped him and should be allowed to leave. He simply pointed in her direction, casually asking where she was going and remarking that they were now partners in crime. With a cold apology, he answered his own question, probably not. He fired his handgun, and the force of the shot sent her reeling backward, a spray of blood erupting from her head. Leaving the scene without a second glance, he encountered two guards investigating a strange magical reaction. He approached them with a friendly demeanor, asking if he could borrow their vehicle for a minute, before suddenly lunging forward to attack them. Having acquired their card, he drove to a vantage point overlooking the distant city. He decided it was a good spot. Taking out a small, glowing device, he seethed, thinking of those who had messed with him. He told them to eat it, as a magical sigil flared to life around the device in his hand. The device detonated with unimaginable force. A colossal explosion erupted, tearing the earth asunder and throwing him backward from the sheer power of the shockwave. In the immediate aftermath, only smoke and flying debris filled the air, obscuring the devastation. As the smoke began to clear, the result of his work was revealed. A massive, gaping crater now scarred the landscape. He stood beside the wrecked vehicle, momentarily stunned into silence by the scale of the destruction. His silence shattered, replaced by a low chuckle that quickly escalated into wild, uncontrollable laughter. He threw his head back, shouting that it was amazing, unable to stop his manic glee as his laughter echoed across the wasteland he had created. He leaned forward, a manic grin spreading across his face as he revealed his ultimate motivation. All of his actions, he explained, were driven by a single desire, to find a way back to his own world. Finishing his story, he sat across a table from a young woman, explaining that it was the rumors of a skilled alchemist that had given him hope. He asked her directly, stating that any information she might have would be a great help. He pressed for her opinion, but the alchemist, Alice, remained silent, her expression impassive. Internally, however, her judgment was clear and scathing. She thought of him as a true, unmistakable, crazed moron, and the girl in front of him was the one he was now relying on. At a table, Jack Aaron makes the outrageous claim that he blew up the imperial capital. The alchemist, Alice, dismisses it as a joke she's not in the mood for. Unfazed, Jack gives her a thumbs up, assuring her it will be big news soon enough. She counters that turning the city's core into a bomb is a ridiculous notion, even for the imperial mages. Furthermore, she senses no mana from him, concluding he isn't a magic user. He concedes the point, but reveals he has something else quite special, presenting a small, dark, square object for her to inspect. Taking him up on the offer, Alice peers at the object through a magnifying glass. Her eyes widen as she reads the inscription, Bomb-making EX++. She murmurs that it's quite wondrous and that he wasn't lying. He explains the context of skill rankings. A rank is considered master level, and EX is something from children's tales. His skill, however, possesses a plus suffix, signifying a power beyond mankind's knowledge, a power to turn the unimaginable into reality. He admits that while the power was given to him unprompted, making it technically someone else's problem, he's starting to like the effect and feels a certain pride. Alice criticizes his detached attitude, pointing out that it is, in fact, his power and therefore his problem. Her gaze remains on the item as she asks about a number she noticed. Jack's expression shifts as he remembers what she must be referring to. The scene shifts to a few hours earlier, in the aftermath of the city's bombing. Jack stands alone on a dirt road beside the smoking, wrecked chassis of a car. He laments his inability to shake the bad habit of resorting to mass murder when provoked, realizing he should have asked for a way home before destroying everything. A more immediate regret surfaces. He forgot his cigarettes. Crouching in frustration, he wonders what he's supposed to do now. As he crouches, a translucent status board appears before him. It displays his name, Jack Aaron, level 385, class, bomber, karma, -600, and his bomb-making EX++ skill. He mutters an annoyance about the strangeness of a world with status boards, figuring that if they could summon him, they can also send him back. His mind finally processes the information. Level 385? He recalls being level 1 upon arrival, with a different class and the same negative karma. The only explanation he can fathom, based on video games, is that he gained a colossal amount of experience points for blowing up the entire city. The full implication of this sudden, immense power begins to dawn on him. He landed with the force of a meteor, the ground shattering around him as a shockwave erupted outwards. His past self, still reeling from the explosion, could only stare in shock at the sudden, powerful arrival. To test this newfound power, he clenched his fist around a piece of rubble. It crumbled into dust with a faint crack, as easily as a cracker. He laughed, realizing that leveling up had drastically increased his physical capabilities, just as he'd imagined. He felt invincible, flexing his hands with a confident smirk. This was more than just all right. It was a complete game changer. He declared that a new superhero had just arrived in town. His next thought was to test his limits. Crouching low, he launched himself into the sky with explosive force, determined to see if flight was now within his grasp. He landed back on the ground, a little disappointed. Flying wasn't part of the skill set. Still, he mused that his jump could easily break an Olympic record. Deciding to look around town, he considered getting a super suit for Christmas. Back in the present, Alice stared at the status plate, her expression a mixture of disbelief and concern. She found the numbers ridiculous, but confirmed there was no sign of forgery. Jack noted that this was good, as he had been wondering how he would handle being questioned by the guards at the town's gate. The memory of that encounter was still fresh. The guards had reacted with alarm, shouting about his -600 karma. On top of his level being 385, they immediately concluded the status must be fake and that he was a dangerous individual breaking all the wrong records. Her question hung in the air. "And you got through the guards how?" Alice asked. He leaned in with a wry smile, explaining that he was no fake and certainly not dangerous. But when a man gets pushed into a corner with such a warm welcoming, he has to react. He elaborated with a dark grin, recalling the friendly chat-in which involved him effortlessly fighting off the guards. He tossed his last grenade towards them as a parting gift. Back in the present, he told a stunned Alice that he gave them something precious, and they let him through, his class revealed as bomber. Alice conceded that while the numbers were abnormal, they didn't lie. She then asked where he went next. Jack explained that while asking for a way home, some nice local folks offered to help. The scene flashed back to him, surrounded by thugs. One of them mentioned a witch who might use space magic, just as Jack pressed a pistol to the man's head. He recalled the information he'd gathered. The so-called, which was an alchemist who made a living selling homebrewed potions. Rumor had it she possessed immense power. A few fools who tried to rob her were never seen again. He voiced his surprise to Alice, questioning how she could be the witch when she wasn't an evil, ugly old hag as stories suggested. She simply affirmed that it was indeed her. She noted that it was already supper time and, expressing curiosity about his skills, invited him to join her for a meal. Grateful for the offer, he readily accepted, admitting he couldn't turn it down. Pleased with his answer, she clapped her hands together and announced she would get everything started. As she did, Jack looked on in confusion. Suddenly, a swarm of small, robotic-looking figures appeared, efficiently setting the table with bowls of food and utensils. He stared at the strange creatures bustling around him and asked what they were. Alice, already seated, calmly identified them as golems. She explained that she had created them herself and that they followed her orders. Jack looked on, impressed, realizing this was the power of alchemy. He likened them to robots that work by command, a concept from his world. Alice, unfamiliar with the term, simply stated that she uses these children as her servants. He offered her a piece of bread. His mind raced with suspicion. Being invited into a stranger's home and fed made him wonder if she had a crush on him. The food smelled wonderful and seemed safe, but its resemblance to dishes from his own world was unsettling. He reminded himself that the reputation of the witch's cottage of no return was not to be taken lightly. His suspicion hardened into a grim resolve. Gripping his fork, he decided that if she tried to pull a fast one, he would beat her without hesitation. He takes a bite, his expression one of pure satisfaction. He declares the food amazing, though he notes to Alice that it could use a bit of salt. She listens, sipping from her cup. As he continues to eat, she shifts the conversation to a more serious topic, the matter of him returning to his own world. She explains that the repatriation magic required for such a journey is definitely difficult. However, after a moment of consideration, she concludes that it is not impossible. She elaborates on the requirements. To even begin, they would first need to confirm the spell's exact procedure. This would necessitate research equipment, materials, and the substantial support of a large organization, such as an entire country. He recognizes this information as it matches what he has already gathered himself. Alice confirms that space-related magic is not easily used, and that the crucial procedures and arrays are kept as state secrets. Still, she insists it is not impossible. The mercenary's mind races. To acquire the necessary materials and equipment, he would need a country's backing. He internally debates selling his services to some random nation, but doubts if such a plan would even succeed. He reflects that in this world, his identity is laid bare on a status board. Jack Aaron, class. Bomber, Karma. -600, with skills in translation and bomb-making. He cannot hide who he is, and he despises the kind of restraints that serving a country would impose. His thoughts darken as he recalls a past event, a massive explosion. He knows his trump card is the ability to implode a city's core, and he coldly considers that he might just do it again. Sensing his grim mood, Alice asks what's troubling him, guessing it's his aversion to working for a country. He concedes that it's a difficult problem, thinking to himself that a bomber would find it hard to resist the temptations each nation could offer. Their conversation is cut short by a sudden flash of light and a sharp crackle of energy from outside. Both are startled. Alice looks toward the window, realizing that something must have triggered the spell on the gates. She looks towards the source of the alarm, her gate, which is now crackling with protective energy. It's a ward she installed to keep out intruders. Despite the ward, Jack Aaron stands on the balcony, having just come through the gate. Alice notes with surprise that he passed through it without any issue. He seems unaware at first, questioning if he really did, before noticing a faint crackle of static electricity around his hand. He turns to her with a casual grin, greeting her as Miss Alchemist before admitting that the electrical ward was, in fact, quite painful. From inside, Alice observes that he seems unharmed despite his comment. She reflects that she designed the barrier to be powerful enough to incapacitate even high-level threats, yet it was not quite sufficient to stop him. Their conversation is cut short as Jack points towards a gate. He asks Alice if the man in strange clothing currently climbing over the fence is a friend of hers. Both of them watch, startled, as the newcomer lands inside the property. The intruder flashes a sinister grin. Behind him, a crowd of otherworlders watches in terror, one of their own lying defeated on the ground before them. Jack's expression hardens with recognition. He knows this man. The intruder's face twists in fury as he points directly at Jack, roaring that he has finally found the bastard. He demands to know how Jack survived the explosion in the capital and orders him to get down there immediately. From the balcony, Jack and Alice watch the man below. He ignores the alchemist entirely, his focus solely on Jack. With a look of pure, unadulterated frustration, he loosens his tie, declaring he has business to attend to. As Jack Aaron steps out into the night, Alice remains at the doorway, urging him to be careful. Her expression is fraught with worry. She senses that the man he is going to meet is dangerous. He glances back, telling her he will be. Alice perceives an immense, furious hatred directed towards him from somewhere nearby. She tells him she'll wait right there, as she has more questions for him, and warns him not to get lost. A man in a disheveled shirt and tie calls out to Jack from across the street. Realizing this won't be a friendly chat, the man checks his remaining ammunition. He draws a sword, his face twisted in a snarl, expressing surprise that Jack is still alive when he thought him reduced to ashes. His voice trembles with rage as he declares that he's been searching for him. He can't believe his luck, finding his target right in the first town. He accuses Jack directly. "You're the one that blew up the Imperial capital, aren't you?" Jack smirks, confirming it without hesitation. He claims the people there were involved in ridiculous affairs and simply got what was coming to them. The vengeful man points, his face contorted in fury, shouting that he knew it was Jack's evil actions. He demands to know if Jack understands how many people died, screaming at him to show some remorse. Jack dismisses the question entirely, stating the numbers mean nothing to him. He explains that if he felt remorse, he wouldn't be a bomber, a title he's been known and feared by since his previous world, having lost count of his kills long ago. The man remains incredulous, asking how Jack could possibly still be alive after an explosion that leveled the city in an instant. Jack retorts that feeling guilty for every bomb would make being a mercenary pointless. The man realizes the truth. Jack survived thanks to his special skill, just as every other reincarnated person survived with their own unique abilities. He continues, revealing that he knows for a fact the other survivors are scheming to take Jack down. With a sinister grin, he informs Jack that he isn't the only one blessed with powerful cheats in this world, even if the others are reluctant to cooperate. The man explains that the morons who once mocked him are still alive because of these cheat abilities, and that his goal is to hunt down and eliminate all his targets. Hearing this, Jack's face lights up with a manic glee. The idea is so exciting he might lose sleep over it. admitting he won't be satisfied until he blows them all up. Jack calmly asks why he would reveal all this, pointing out that he's just lost the element of surprise. The vengeful man's face twists in anguish and hatred. He declares that he told Jack everything to plant a seed of despair within him, to make him deeply regret his actions. He grits his teeth, his hand tightening into a fist as he adds one final point to his declaration. He raises his sword, sneering that for a dead man like Jack, knowing another thing or two won't matter. Jack Aaron remains unimpressed, noting the man's confidence. He remarks that in another world, the man might have survived another day by keeping his mouth shut, but now it's too late. Jack coolly promises to blow him to pieces. This enrages his opponent, who screams that he will fulfill his duty as the Empire's hero, live without a care, and then return to his original world. He insists that he is not the type to get into trouble. A series of memories from his past life flash through his mind. He always believed that people who got into trouble were pathetic, and that he was superior for carefully observing everything to avoid failure. This pattern of thinking followed him from elementary school to high school, and into his corporate career, where his superior confronted him, calling him Manita and accusing him of selling company secrets. His rationalizations continue. He internally seethed, questioning why he was the only one among his colleagues not to get a raise. He refused to accept blame, instead projecting it onto his superiors for not seeing his potential, onto his colleagues, onto God. It was anyone's fault but his own. He remembers believing with all his being that they were wrong. In that moment of desperation and denial, a brilliant light appeared, answering his pleas and pulling him from his world. Returning to the present, his rage boils over. This new life is his second chance to regain his honor and his well-deserved life. As he lunges forward to attack, Jack suddenly holds up a hand, telling him to stop. Jack, now joined by Alice, calmly asks why Manita would even tell him his name, pointing out that he wouldn't have known it otherwise. He suggests he should catch his name first. He then fires a handgun directly at Manita, smirking that it would be a pain to build a grave for someone nameless. The bullets halt abruptly in midair, inches from Manita's face. He holds a hand out, his expression locked in intense concentration. Jack's confident smirk vanishes, replaced by utter shock as his opponent's true power is revealed. He reveals the name of his skill. Perfect Reflection A+. It doubles and reflects any damage directed at him. Jack, still crouched, stares in disbelief, wondering what kind of power he's facing. With this power, he declares himself undefeated, explaining it's how he survived the capital's explosion. He then formally introduces himself as Manita Kuji. The mercenary, still on the ground, acknowledges the name, thanking him before the fight's conclusion. Promising to remember the name, Jack springs into action. He throws a powerful right hook, but the blow is stopped short, sending a shockwave of pain through his arm. His pistol is knocked away as he recoils. Undeterred, he draws another firearm, but Manita scoffs at the useless attempt. The mercenary follows up with a swift kick, but it too is repelled. As Manita roars for him to die, Jack lands and aims his weapon one last time, only to hear an empty click. A cruel smile spreads across Manita's face as he points out that Jack has run out of ammunition. Seizing the opening, he lunges forward, striking Jack hard with the pommel of his blade. Jack cries out as he's thrown back. Manita sneers, telling him that any further struggle is pointless. Now separated by a short distance, Jack catches his breath and asks Manita for his level. Manita boasts that he is level 80, attributing his superior strength to a large amount of experience points he received. Jack, whose own level is 385, immediately realizes this is a lie. He continues to gloat, claiming that Jack's high level only benefits him, as it means more damage to reflect. But Jack sees the truth. Manita is an utter novice in a real fight. He understands that even with the level disparity, a careless attack would be suicidal. Still, determined not to be cut down, he closes the distance with another kick. The exchange leaves them at a standstill once more. Leaning on his sword for support, a frustrated Manita demands to know why Jack refuses to give up. He screams that victory is impossible for the mercenary, ordering him to accept his judgment. In response, Jack simply smirks, gesturing for him to come closer. He asks if they can finally finish their business, stating that he is making others wait. His confidence leaves Manita momentarily confused. Jack advises him to never consider himself unbeatable, warning that such arrogance leads only to destruction. With that final piece of advice, he charges forward, intent on showing Manita the truth of his words. He slammed into Kuji Manita, grabbing his head and using his momentum to throw the man off balance. Manita, caught completely by surprise, could only gasp as he was thrown to the ground, finally understanding what first-hand combat experience felt like. Before Manita could recover, he wrapped an arm around his neck, locking him in a tight chokehold. He explained that this was how he would bypass the perfect reflect skill, by putting him in a painless submission. He elaborated on the plan. Simply restrict his movement with a light touch and hold him down. That way, there would be no actual damage to be reflected. Manita struggled, demanding to be let go. Jack Aaron flatly refused, calling it a hug from a fan. He then produced a small, stick-like object, offering it as a souvenir before flicking a lighter open. He forced the lit object, an explosive firecracker, into Manita's mouth, telling him not to be picky. He explained that its firepower was low, not even enough to cause a dent, something he had acquired from his former world. As Manita choked, Jack laid out his cruel trap. The explosion might be weak, but the reflected damage would be doubled. With the explosion happening inside his mouth, the energy would have nowhere to go, reflecting endlessly. He taunted Manita, asking how long he could possibly withstand it. A horrifying realization dawned on Manita as he swallowed the object. The explosion was now contained within his stomach. Jack watched, noting how annoying the situation had become. His body began to swell unnaturally as the energy built up inside him. From a distance, Alice and her companions heard the strange noise. Jack offered a twisted path to salvation. Forgive him and treat him as a friend. With a manic grin, Jack declared their new friendship official. To commemorate it, he proposed a game of catch, with Manita as the ball. He then drove his fist into the man's bloated stomach, sending him flying into the air. The man's body erupted in a massive, violent explosion against a nearby wall. Jack stood with his back to the blast, a solitary figure in the aftermath of his brutal victory. He walks away from the grisly aftermath, leaving the crowd to reel in horror. His male companion remarks on the astonishing trick shot that made the ball disappear, expressing disappointment that such a performance could only be seen once. Jack, however, seems merely annoyed by the onlookers, questioning why they would come to watch only to cause a scene. He dismisses them as a weird crowd and continues on his way. He soon rejoins Alice, greeting her casually. She welcomes him back, her gaze steady as she observes his condition. She points out that he seems injured and asks if he is okay. He dismisses her concern with a laugh, insisting he just needs a little drink and some rest to be fine. She informs him that, unfortunately, they don't have any alcohol. After a moment's pause, she adds another instruction. Before he comes inside, he must wash the blood off. The comment catches him completely off guard. He touches his face, a look of surprise dawning as he realizes he's covered in it, a detail he had completely miscalculated. After a short break, Jack Aaron stood under the shower, questioning if it was truly all right to relax after the recent chaos. He thanked Alice for her hospitality, but admitted he didn't feel he had the time for a leisurely bath. The incident had only solidified the locals' fear of the witch, making them refrain from even speaking of her. His hesitation was met with a welcoming smile from Alice, who told him that if he had nowhere else to stay, he was welcome in her humble mansion. He found he couldn't turn down such an offer, though his suspicions remained as he sat by the edge of the steaming bath. Soaking in the water, he couldn't help but wonder if she wasn't being a bit too kind. While the truth behind the rumors about Alice the Alchemist was still unclear, he found her behavior to be strangely out of touch with the world. He was certain she wasn't doing this out of the kindness of her heart. He knew for a fact that he was not the kind of person to be liked by others. Therefore, there had to be some other reason for her actions. As he pondered this, a sound from the doorway caught his attention. He briefly considered the possibility of her joining him, but dismissed the thought. Stepping out of the bath, he reached for the shower curtain. Pulling it aside, he was met not by Alice, but by a group of her small, armored golem servants, who stood waiting silently. He recognized them as Alice's servants. Wrapping a towel around his waist, he demanded to know what they were up to. His gaze then fell upon his neatly folded gear. He picked up his vest, realizing it had been washed and dry cleaned. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. She was an attentive woman. He emerged, now clean and dressed in fresh clothes, a towel draped around his neck. He raised a hand in greeting to Alice, thanking her for getting the blood and mud cleaned off. She looked on, seemingly unsurprised by this formidable man. As he spoke, Alice noted that the wound on his cheek had already healed. He touched the spot, confirming it was gone and surmising that his high level must increase his recovery rate. Seeing this wonderful change, Alice remarked that there was no need for healing magic and offered to show him to the guest room. She led him into a spacious room with 2 beds, telling him to feel free to rest. He agreed, noting how comfortable the bed looked, before turning his attention back to her. He then asked what he should call her. In turn, she asked how she should address him. He casually replied that Jack or Aaron were both fine and that she could do as she pleased. She considered this for a moment, then decided she would call him Jack San. She addressed him as Jack San, stating that she liked his strong spirit. Alice explained that while most people would find her insensitive or arrogant, he was a rare specimen. Her interest in him had been piqued the moment she first laid eyes on him, which was the reason she invited him to her home. He leaned closer, a smirk playing on his lips, and provocatively asked if it was love at first sight. He laughed it off, joking about the burden of being a handsome man. Alice's expression remained placid. She stated coolly that she liked mad people like him, finding it endlessly entertaining to gaze into the filth within their souls. Her words about his soul caught him off guard, but he decided to take it as a compliment. Alice then recalled his earlier comment about someone harboring immense hatred for him, prompting him to ask how she could know such a thing. She explained her power. She can see the hues of emotions and spirits. As she noted the late hour and bid him good night, he wished her the same. Later that night, as Jack slept soundly, a soft knock echoed in the room. Alice stood silently by his bedside, her gaze fixed upon him in the quiet darkness. The morning light stirred him from his sleep. As he sat up and stretched, he saw Alice standing in the room. She wished him a good morning, and he returned the greeting, calling her by name. She informed him that breakfast was ready and it was time to dine. He sat at the breakfast table, contemplating his host's intentions. Was her only goal to wake him? He reasoned that if she had any other plans, she would have revealed them by now. His thoughts were interrupted when Alice asked how the food was. Taking a bite, his eyes widened in surprise. He declared it was very good, so delicious he would become a regular customer if it were a restaurant. He reflected that while he hated being exploited, he was happy to repay a kindness when he could. She explained that she had noticed he didn't seem satisfied with dinner the previous night, so she had tried using a heavier seasoning for breakfast. He recalled that, indeed, the prior evening's meal had been a bit bland. He was taken aback that she had caught such a subtle detail and apologized, admitting his sense of taste was weak and that he was simply grateful for any meal. Unfazed, Alice changed the subject, asking what he planned to do from now on. He stated his primary goal was to return to his own world. However, he added that there was something else he needed to take care of first. His demeanor shifted, his expression hardening with resolve. He revealed his intention to murder the others who were reincarnated with him. Since he failed to eliminate them when he destroyed the imperial capital, he was certain they were now plotting revenge, and he had to deal with them permanently. Alice calmly listened, remarking that it sounded difficult before offering him her support. As he continued to eat, she made a request. After the meal, she would like to see more of his skills. She elaborated, explaining that her curiosity about bomb making, the process, and the results was exceptionally high. He readily agreed, telling her to provide the materials, and he would give her a demonstration. With their meal concluded, Alice led the way from the dining area, beckoning him to follow. He rose from the table, a thoughtful look on his face. She guided him into a spacious workshop filled with shelves of ingredients, beakers, and alchemical equipment. She explained that this was her potion brewing laboratory and confirmed that it also contained explosive materials. He surveyed the shelves, his brow furrowed in concentration. The alchemist's laboratory was filled with countless jars and vials, and while he could read the labels, the names meant nothing to him. He wondered aloud how he was supposed to distinguish between them, admitting that simply reading the words didn't grant him understanding. In response to his confusion, Alice began to guide him. She picked up a small vial containing a clear fluid, identifying it as a magic liquid. She explained that it was made from mana and was a key component in fuel for magical tools and vehicles, noting that its price was directly tied to its purity. She continued her tour of the ingredients, pointing out a flammable vegetable liquid and then a jar containing bodily fluids from a processed magic beast. She warned that a slight touch of the latter could cause severe burns, though it was also used for brewing wine, provided one didn't drink it as is. Hearing this, Jack lamented that his Friday night plans were now ruined, prompting a skeptical look from the alchemist. As she explained the uses and effects of each substance, a grin spread across his face. He realized that with her knowledge, he could now identify materials suitable for making bombs. Alice then provided a simple set of instructions. Mix a specific amount of one ingredient, bottle it, attach a fuse, and finally, cool and solidify the mixture. She handed him a paper with the recipe sketched out, remarking that its difficulty made a perfect test of his abilities. He took the paper, a look of slight confusion on his face as he confirmed that his only task was to follow the instructions and craft the item. He continued to stare at the recipe, his expression unreadable. Noticing his hesitation, Alice asked what was troubling him. He finally voiced his concern, questioning if the mixing ratio on the recipe was incorrect. Alice dismissed his doubt immediately, stating with confidence that she was an alchemist and he should simply trust her and proceed with the task. With a resigned shrug, he agreed, deciding to follow her instructions despite his misgivings. He began the delicate process of mixing the alchemical ingredients. 5 minutes later, 3 identical vials stood completed on the workbench. The experimental magic bombs were rank D, possessing attributes of fire sensitivity and the potential to cause magical injury, though they were noted as a poor brew. Jack assessed his handiwork with a critical eye, deeming it not bad. He mused that while their performance surpassed a simple firecracker, they were nothing compared to the city's core. Alice, however, was visibly stunned. She praised his work as amazing, revealing that he had managed to succeed, even though the mixing ratio she provided was deliberately improper. She held up 3 fingers, emphasizing that he had created 3 successful bombs from a recipe that no one had ever managed to follow correctly before. To her, what he had just accomplished was simply impossible. Jack processes her words, the pieces clicking into place. He realizes she gave him a faulty recipe, one designed to fail, all to test his abilities. The bad feeling he had now made perfect sense. He looks over at Alice, who confirms his unspoken thoughts. She explains that while her own skill would ensure the success of bomb making, its application is simply unparalleled. Jack listens, a grim understanding dawning on his face. His expression shifts to a cynical smirk as he asks if she's happy now. Believing the matter concluded, he is caught off guard when Alice calls his name, her tone suddenly serious. She has something to ask him. Intrigued, Jack tells her to go ahead. With an unwavering, intense gaze, Alice reveals her true desire. She wants to destroy this world. The statement hangs in the air, leaving Jack utterly stunned as he tries to comprehend the meaning of such a wish. Following her world-shattering declaration, she formally asks if he would be so kind as to lend her a helping hand. Inside a sparsely furnished room, Jack Aaron stands in disbelief, one hand on his hip and the other raised to his head. He stares at Alice, who sits calmly at a table, and asks if he heard her correctly, demanding she repeat herself. She looks up at him, her expression unwavering. With a steady voice, she declares her desire to destroy the world and formally asks for his strength to help her accomplish this ridiculous proposal. He considers her words, a slight smile playing on his lips as he repeats the phrase, "Lend you my strength, huh?" Finding the request a bit extreme, he asks if she could first tell him the details of her wish. Alice agrees, suggesting they have some tea. Moments later, the two are seated across from each other at a table, one of Alice's small golem servants beside them. As they sip their drinks, Jack begins to recount a story from long ago about a certain dark mage. Alice takes over the narrative, explaining that this woman had an ambitious goal. Unfortunately, time was slipping away before she could achieve her dream. Disgusted by the limitations of being mortal, she created a forbidden technique. She continues, describing the spell as one that allows the user to inherit their power and knowledge into their next life. By refusing to accept death as the end, the mage treated it as nothing more than a milestone. Jack expresses his admiration, calling the idea awesome. He speculates that such a crazed dark mage must have turned into a monster by now. Alice calmly refutes this, explaining that it's quite the opposite. The mage could have found immortality, but refused, adamant about achieving her goal as a human. He leans back, processing this new information. The word immortal hangs in the air. He strokes his chin thoughtfully and announces that, based on the flow of the story, he's going to make a guess. His expression shifts from contemplation to sharp realization. Leaning forward with a knowing smirk, he looks directly at Alice and asks the critical question. Is she the reincarnation of that dark mage? Her gaze meets his, her face a mask of calm composure. Without a hint of hesitation, she confirms his suspicion with a single word, correct. She clarifies that while she is the dark mage's next life, she is not the same person. Mentally, she is a completely different being, though she has inherited the mage's power and will. Jack Aaron processes this, concluding that the original dark mage is, for all intents and purposes, dead. Alice confirms his assessment. She explains the original mage's rationale. The mage understood her own mediocrity and feared that her ego would prevent her from growing. Believing that spontaneous and irregular growth is the true catalyst for evolution, the first dark mage chose to live countless lives, cultivating a vast array of experiences. She never intended for her original self to survive. Alice reveals that she is the 13th life in this cycle. She has inherited alchemy techniques from the second life, golem magic from the 6th, magic tool craftsmanship from the 9th, and a unique spiritual sensation from her current, 13th incarnation. He pieces it together, remarking on the immense willpower required for such a long-term plan, all to destroy the world. Alice corrects him, stating she's a genius in her own right and wasn't simply gifted everything. She then reaffirms her goal to destroy the world, but clarifies her true motivation, to become the greatest alchemist ever. Jack, utterly confused, questions what that has to do with world destruction, wondering why world domination isn't a greater achievement. She explains her reasoning with cold logic. No one has ever done it before. Once the world is in ruins, no one will ever be born who could surpass her. For eons and millennia to come, she alone will hold the title of greatest. By achieving this, she believes she will be crowned the ultimate existence. As she speaks, an image of the original dark mage with arms outstretched appears. Jack takes a sip from his cup, a look of understanding dawning on his face. He finally grasps the first dark mage's mindset and tells Alice he understands her story now. He rubs his head, a wry grin on his face, and calls her a true mad scientist. He admits that he had noticed she wasn't a normal kid, but now realizes she is a far more dangerous monster than he had ever thought. Alice listens in silence. She then asks him a direct question. Is he disgusted by her? Jack slams his cup down on the table with a laugh, shouting, "Hell nah." He grins broadly, declaring her plan amazing. He praises her powerful determination and purpose, insisting that he isn't kidding and truly respects her. To him, he explains, it is not evil to press onward at the expense of others. He continues to elaborate on his philosophy. From a certain point of view, if you eliminate everyone in your way to achieve your dream, you become the most righteous person alive. It's only when you're defeated that you are labeled the bad guy. That, he concludes, is how the world works. The strong consume the weak, and only the strong can truly be free. He accepted her thanks as she expressed her gladness, admitting it was rare for someone to understand her. They sat across from each other at a small table, where she noted that she possessed a great deal of knowledge and talent. She then made her proposal directly. If he would help her destroy this world, she would ensure he could return to his own. Alice explained that she could prepare bomb-making equipment and possessed a fair amount of magical knowledge, making her a useful ally for him. He sought clarification, asking if she wanted to borrow the very power he had used to destroy the imperial capital. With a confident smile, Alice confirmed that was exactly it, stating that his bomb-making skill was a crucial key and an opportunity she could not let pass. His eye widened slightly as he processed her words. Leaning forward over the table, his expression now intense, he repeated her ultimate goal back to her: destroy the world. He leaned back with a wry grin, acknowledging that such a task was outside his usual pay grade, but admitting it was definitely interesting. He added that having a local to show him around would be invaluable, and that he was looking forward to it. With the terms understood, he stood and extended his hand, formally accepting her proposal. He told Alice he was glad to be working with her, certain that his life in this world was about to become very interesting. She accepted his handshake, reciprocating the sentiment and proposing they help each other from now on. He grinned, stating his only condition: as long as he was going home, whatever else happened was irrelevant. Alice readily agreed. With their pact sealed, the craziest duo was formed. Jack mused internally that while Alice might be a lunatic, her goal didn't interfere with his own, and he had a feeling things were going to be fine. As they prepare for the coming conflict, Jack Aaron turns to Alice, requesting the use of her mixing room. He explains that having a weapon in hand would make him feel much safer, asserting that it's a necessary tool for achieving both of their goals. She agrees without hesitation, granting him free use of the room and its materials. Alice then reveals that she has already carefully examined his skills. All that remains is for her to figure out the method for this world's destruction. As she departs, Jack watches her, his thoughts turning inward. He knows he must find a way out of this world before she succeeds, and resolves to keep a close eye on her. He is certain she will betray him if she finds a way to destroy the world without his bombs, reflecting on the astounding persistence she showed by sacrificing 13 lives for her goal. Compared to her, he feels like a simple bomber. Inside the workshop, he assesses his limited equipment: an empty gun and a broken knife. He feels a pang of regret, remembering the weapon bag full of ammunition he left behind when he was transported. Crossing his arms, he admits to a growing sense of unease. He forces himself to think positively, deciding there is no point in dwelling on what's lost. This is not the worst situation he has ever faced. His mind flashes back to a truly horrible memory: being thrown out into the snow wearing only his underwear. By comparison, having clothes, food, a roof, and a bomb-making room is a luxury. With renewed perspective, he sets to work. He begins mixing unfamiliar ingredients from this world, confident that his bomb-making EX++ skill will allow him to succeed regardless. His confidence is rewarded. He successfully crafts a makeshift tier gas bomb of E+ rank. Though the quality may vary with materials, his skill guarantees a successful outcome. He realizes he can experiment with many of the local resources. As he continues his work, meticulously mixing components, Alice sits quietly nearby, engrossed in a book, though her attention seems fixed on his progress. After crafting 30 bombs in a row, tear gas, incendiary devices, landmines, and fragmentation bombs, Jack stretches his tired back. He muses that while it's honest work, he wants to try making a magic bomb. Such an upgrade would be a great help against this world's enemies. He decides to ask Alice for her scientific expertise, perhaps involving a mage in the city core, and heads downstairs with this new plan in mind. He calls out for Alice, his voice laced with urgency. His call is cut short by the sight below. An entire army has assembled in the street, their sheer numbers filling him with disbelief. As he reels from the shock, Alice appears at the top of the stairs. He whirls around, demanding to know what is happening. She calmly informs him that the army has arrived, confirming rumors that they are searching for him. He scoffs at the idea, insisting he's a clean, tax-paying citizen of the town, and presses her for more information. Outside, the army's commander bellows a warning, addressing the bomber in hiding directly. He demands an immediate surrender, declaring that any resistance will be met with lethal force. From the window, Jack watches the scene unfold, his frustration mounting. He turns away from the window, a grimly confident smile spreading across his face as he gestures towards himself. Alice watches him, her expression unreadable. With a decisive nod, he declares that if it's a war they want, it's a war they'll get. He arms himself with several of his newly crafted bombs, his expression hardening with resolve. Before he can act, Alice grabs his arm, urging him to hold on. He snaps back, questioning her concern for his life. She calmly advises him to calm down, explaining that fighting would take too long and that they should escape immediately. He considers her advice, realizing that even if they escape, the army will not simply let them go. He concludes that if there is no other way to forge a path to freedom, he will have to kill every last one of them. Just as his resolve hardens, Alice interjects, telling him she has their transportation covered. She simply tells him to follow her. She leads him to a large, previously unseen door within her workshop. As they stand before it, she reveals that he is the first person she has ever brought to this place. She activates a hidden mechanism, causing a section of the wall to slide open with a heavy groan. Jack peers into the pitch-black space beyond, remarking on the darkness. His eyes adjust to reveal a strange, four-wheeled vehicle gleaming in the sudden light. Stunned, he demands to know what it is. Alice calmly explains that it's a special vehicle made from the combination of 10 golems, superior to a horse in every sense. He is overcome with excitement, declaring how glad he is to be collaborating with a genius. She demurs, stating she is merely a successor and had prepared the vehicle for a future trip that simply arrived sooner than intended. Unimpressed with her modesty, he grabs her by the shoulders, insisting she is great and should stop being so humble. His face is split by a wide, confident grin, while she looks back at him with wide, slightly startled eyes. After a moment, he lets out an appreciative whistle and begins loading their gear into the vehicle's front storage compartment as Alice watches on. He tells her to pack her things and throw them in, eager to get a reaction from the soldiers outside. Alice observes that he's a good man, especially with the ladies. He agrees, adding that there's no point in having a fine ride if you don't show it off. Meanwhile, outside the workshop, the army commander rages at his troops. An explosion sends one soldier flying as the commander roars in frustration, questioning how they can't even take a simple alchemist house, which he dismisses as a mere witch hut. His anger is met by a swarm of Alice's golems pouring out to attack his soldiers. He bellows for the useless things to be destroyed. Back inside, Alice notes that while their numbers are great, the golems won't hold the army back for long. Jack, carrying a box, remarks on how handy they are. With their supplies loaded, she hands him the keys. They settle into their seats, and Jack delights in the crisp sound of the engine starting. Alice asks if he's sure he doesn't need the autopilot, but he confidently refuses, stating his belief in his own driving to smash through the crowd outside. He grins, admitting he's nervous too, but only because he considers this a car date. His comment leaves Alice flustered. She confesses to feeling an indescribable nervousness, clarifying that it isn't fear, but something else entirely. She informs Jack that she is about to open the wall, asking if he is ready. From the driver's seat, he confidently replies, anytime. With that confirmation, she closes her eyes and focuses her power, her hand outstretched towards the stone barrier. The stone wall shatters outwards, revealing the golem-powered vehicle as it bursts into the open. The surrounding soldiers are caught completely by surprise. Inside, Jack grins, announcing that their fun drive is about to begin and they should put on a show. He cautions Alice to be careful not to bite her tongue, and she quietly affirms. He immediately slams the vehicle forward, crashing through the line of soldiers with brutal force. As men are thrown aside, Jack lets out a relieved sigh, remarking that he was worried about not having any airbags but is thankful for the cushion provided by the soldiers' bodies. Beside him, Alice quietly wonders if the car has seatbelts. The chaos draws the attention of the army commander, who roars for the bomber to halt, accusing him of destroying the imperial capital. From the driver's seat, Jack's expression hardens as he tells the commander to shut his hole. The car continues to accelerate, running down more soldiers who try to block its path. As they continue their brutal advance, the windshield becomes splattered with blood, obscuring their vision. Alice clicks her tongue, noting that their view is blocked. She glances over at Jack, who remains completely unfazed by the gruesome scene unfolding on their windshield. He stares ahead, focused on driving, while she looks on in silence, her expression unreadable. His focus remains unbroken as he navigates the blood-soaked streets. He reassures Alice that it's all right, as he can still see the road just fine, suggesting they consider the gore a form of decoration. He makes a mental note to remember this for future improvements. Behind them, the remaining soldiers shout desperately, ordering their comrades to stop the escaping vehicle. A white armored car tears through the streets at a blinding speed, scattering soldiers. A commander bellows orders for mages to target the vehicle's wheels and for all units to be contacted for backup. Inside, Jack Aaron lets out a hearty laugh, declaring the car a magnificent monster machine that shrugs off both bullets and magic. Alice, seated beside him, calmly clarifies that its armor is composed of 10 golems, each as hard as the city wall, but cautions that it is not entirely impenetrable. He roars in agreement, adding with delight that the vehicle is also coated in a magic-resistant spell, explaining its imperviousness to the mage's attacks. As he celebrates, Alice's expression shows she has just remembered something. She reaches for the dashboard console and presses a button, drawing Jack's curious gaze. Suddenly, the cabin is filled with the sound of loud music. A startled Jack asks if she has a music player installed, identifying the genre as hard rock. Alice explains that it is a special kind of magic, one that uses melodies as its formula. She elaborates, admitting that while she is not personally a fan, the benefits are significant. She reveals that her 5th incarnation was a musician who must have loved this genre. Continuing her explanation, Alice states that this particular song is noted to be perfect for boosting team morale, enhancing dynamic vision, and encouraging excitement. Jack listens, beginning to understand. A smirk crosses his face as he reflects on the strange combination of things in this world. Medieval scenery, magic, guns, golem cars, and now rock music. He muses on what else this place could possibly have. His thoughts are interrupted as Alice's gaze fixes on the side mirror. Her expression turns serious. She spots several figures on motorcycles rapidly approaching from behind and announces they have pursuers. The pursuers close in, soldiers on motorcycles riding alongside them with weapons drawn. Looking over at the chaotic scene, Jack grins, remarking that these guys certainly know how to play, attempting a drive-by shooting. He gripped the wheel as Alice, seated beside him, calmly lit the fuse on a cylindrical device. She urged him to act, but he scoffed, refusing to let her dictate the terms. With a swift motion, he tossed the device out of the car. It wasn't explosive, but a smoke bomb, designed to erupt in a thick cloud that quickly enveloped their pursuers. The smoke, however, was laced with stimulants similar to chili peppers, a potent tool for blinding and immobilizing enemies. The soldiers cried out, clutching their burning eyes as they stumbled in agony. Jack laughed maniacally, declaring they wouldn't recover from that. Through the chaos, a lone soldier on a motorcycle accelerated, shouting for the criminal scum to stop. Their car collided with a motorcycle, sending the rider tumbling through the air. Jack grimaced, realizing that continuing to run into their pursuers would take all day. The problem was compounded by the fact that the city exit was on the opposite side. With no time to turn around, he considered simply flooring it, but just then, a soft beep sounded from Alice's pen. Instantly, the entire upper body of the golem car lifted off its chassis, connected only by twisting, dark tendrils. In a stunning mechanical feat, the cabin spun a full 180 degrees. Both Jack and Alice stared forward in disbelief at the impossible maneuver, and he could only utter a curse. The maneuver completed, leaving them facing the opposite direction. Stunned, he demanded to know what she had just done. Alice explained that she had commanded the golem's upper body to spin, as turning the entire vehicle would have been a chore. With their path now clear, she simply told him to drive straight. He complied, the car speeding away down the street. Still processing the sudden reorientation, he grumbled that she should give him a heads up next time, admitting that he was not good with surprises. He glanced at Alice with a wry smile, conceding that he was glad she had made something so effective. As they crashed through a wooden barricade, Alice replied with a serene smile of her own, remarking that she found the entire experience quite thrilling. She then asked him directly if he liked the car. He paused, then admitted that, ethically, the vehicle was completely messed up. From a personal standpoint, however, he didn't give two shits. Alice seemed pleased by his answer. He confirmed with genuine enthusiasm that he absolutely loved it, joking that his next letter to Santa Claus would be a request to bring this very car back to his old world. She agreed that the car could be improved and asked for his detailed suggestions later. He readily accepted, musing that he couldn't even imagine what an upgraded version would be like. Their conversation was cut short as they approached another roadblock, this one heavily fortified with more soldiers and armored vehicles, all taking aim. He spots the military barricade ahead and declares his intention to ram right through it, telling Alice to hold on. She, however, calmly dismisses the blockade as flimsy and tells him to leave it to her, explaining that she will change the vehicle into the perfect shape to break through. He looks on, confused, questioning what she is about to do. He attempts to steer, but the wheel is unresponsive. As his hand glows over the dashboard, he realizes Alice has taken control, the engine revving in response to her power. The golem car's body contorts and reshapes, its front end transforming into a sharp, armored wedge. Jack stares in wide-eyed shock at the terrifying change, while Alice coolly asks if this new form would be more suitable for ramming through flesh. As the transformed vehicle barrels towards them, a soldier at the barricade shouts in alarm for his comrades to open fire. The armored car smashes through the line of defense, sending soldiers scattering and debris flying. From the driver's seat, Jack nonchalantly asks what the rush is all about. One of the soldiers is thrown onto the hood of the speeding vehicle, screaming in terror. Jack leans out the window and casually asks the man if he's hurt, telling him there's no need for thanks. He continues, explaining that he just needs a little chat and asks for the soldier's gun, preferably with bullets. He remarks that at their current rate, he'll run out of firepower soon. With a triumphant cry, he wrenches the firearm from the terrified soldier's hands. As the man begs to be saved, Jack cheerfully thanks him, saying he owes him big time. After tossing the soldier from the car, Jack proudly shows Alice his new souvenir. He sarcastically remarks how nice the locals are, deeply touched by their hostility. Alice gives him a flat look, calling him a joker. He grins, admitting he's never been a serious man. Alice interrupts, pointing towards a large, shut gate nearby, identifying it as their goal. Jack confidently boasts that their vehicle can surely pierce through it, but his expression shifts to one of shock as a massive, dark, hoofed leg slams down in front of them, seemingly sprouting from the golem car itself. He watches as a new figure charges toward them on a powerful steed, a knight in full armor, her expression a mask of grim determination. From within the golem car, Jack assesses the approaching threat, recognizing that this one would be a tough opponent, possessing a killing intent far beyond that of the common soldiers. As she gallops closer, Alice identifies her as the captain of the city's knights, a famous hero and wielder of a magic sword. Jack scoffs, dismissing the need for exposition. He declares there's no reason to remember her name, as she'll be 6 feet under in 5 minutes. He calmly begins to prepare a small, spherical bomb. Before he can act, the knight is upon them. Her mount rears with a powerful cry as she brings her massive blade crashing down onto the golem vehicle, the impact shaking its frame. The vehicle holds. Jack smirks, remarking that with such a strange horse, she's better suited to be a jockey than a knight. Alice calmly corrects him, revealing that the creature is a monster whose distant cousins are dragons. The information gives Jack pause. He is impressed. Noticing his reaction, Alice asks if he feels disappointed that she was the one who made their ride. He admits that he is a little bit. She quickly reassures him, stating that their golem car is far stronger and faster than the knight's mount, and they will not lose. Emboldened, Jack leans out of the car's window, a cocky grin on his face. He calls out to the knight, riding alongside them, mockingly asking if she wants to go on a tour together. His taunt is met with a look of pure fury. His words push her over the edge. "Quit your yammering, madman," she screams, vowing that he will die 1,000 times for his sins and that she will not forgive him. With a final, mighty heave, she thrusts her sword forward, piercing straight through the armored hood of the golem car. The blade shrieks through metal, stopping just inches from Jack and Alice, who stare in wide-eyed shock. As the golem car speeds through the city streets, the knight captain on horseback closes in, swinging her massive sword. With a sudden lurch, Jack Aaron catches the descending blade between his gloved hands, a defensive maneuver known as Shirahidori, halting his momentum just inches from the vehicle's hood. He strains against the weapon's weight, realizing it has the edge. Alice, sitting beside him, identifies the weapon as an enchanted sword, its destructive power incomparable to ordinary arms, and warns him to be careful. The knight captain, struggling against his grip, furiously demands that he let go. The car continues to drag the knight captain forward, knocking her shrieking horse aside. A sizzling sound erupts as the enchanted blade burns through Jack's gloves, causing him to grunt in pain. She leaps away just as the car crashes. From the driver's seat, Jack taunts her, remarking on her heartlessness for using her horse's tracks to cover her own escape. His words visibly anger the knight captain, who glares back with fury. Inside the damaged vehicle, Alice observes that the car won't hold up much longer. Jack, however, reassures her that it's all right. Hearing his calm voice, the knight captain roars for him to shut up. The enraged knight leaps onto the hood of the car. As she lands, Jack thinks to himself how much more manageable the situation would be with a submachine gun. The golem car then smashes through a large gate, shattering it into pieces. Jack, now holding a knife, confirms he has it ready. He calmly instructs Alice to set the vehicle on autopilot for him. He leaps from the driver's seat onto the hood, directly confronting his pursuer. He mockingly calls her a freeloader and a hassle, telling her to get off. The knight captain retorts that he should regret ever showing his face, warning that anyone who steps into her range is doomed. They face off on the narrow hood of the moving car. The knight captain declares there's no escape, but Jack dismisses her concept of range on such an unstable foothold. He reveals his knife, declaring checkmate. He inwardly scoffs at the fucking amateur, knowing his knife is bound to hit first, and lunges forward, drawing a cry of pain from her. He follows through with a powerful kick, sending the knight captain flying off the vehicle. "Here's your express ticket to the other side," he says coldly. As she tumbles through the air, she screams in fury, enraged that the bastard dared to lay a foot on her. Jack watches her fall with a detached, calculating gaze. He watches as the dagger he left embedded in the knight captain detonates in a violent explosion. As the golem car speeds away from the blast, he remains perched on its roof, observing the aftermath while Alice steers from within. He reflects on the weapon's success. It was a prototype, a bomb with explosives packed into the hilt of a dagger, but its performance was impressive. He considers making more. Below him, the knight captain's massive sword rests on the car's hood, a new prize. He climbs back inside the vehicle, hoisting his new loot. He announces his return to Alice, congratulating her on making it back safely and boasting about the spoils he acquired. Beaming with satisfaction, he declares it a complete victory and raises his hand for a high five. Alice, however, simply stares at his open palm, her expression one of pure confusion. She finally speaks, her gaze still fixed on his hand, and asks him what it is. He seems surprised by her ignorance as their golem car travels through a mountainous pass. He asks if she truly doesn't know what a high five is. Alice confirms that it's the first time she's ever heard of it, and asks about the proper situation to use such a gesture. He struggles to find the right words, explaining that there's no clear definition. It's more about the vibe. He clarifies that it's a gesture used when you're happy and want to share that feeling or energize others. Alice listens intently, processing the information and confirming she understands. She immediately raises her own hand towards him, ready to complete the gesture. The sudden action catches him completely off guard. Her hand remains poised in the air as she looks at him expectantly, asking if he isn't going to high-five her. Jack can only stare back, his confident demeanor replaced by a flustered silence. She completes the high five with Jack, who smiles and readily accepts the gesture. As their vehicle speeds through a dense forest, Jack lets out a weary sigh. He voices his longing for wine and cigarettes. Alice, looking at a map, expresses her hope that they'll encounter a town soon, and Jack agrees they just need to endure until they can resupply. His thoughts then turn to practical matters, and he asks if the car needs refueling. Alice calmly informs him that it does not. She explains that the golem is designed to absorb magical power directly from the atmosphere, meaning they shouldn't run out of fuel. Jack marvels at the convenience, wishing such technology existed back in his world. He then asks if she has decided on their next destination. Alice confirms that they cannot continue aimlessly. She needs materials for repairs and upgrades. After considering a few options, she has settled on the independent nation of Urea, a cluster of cities in the Empire's southern region known for its unique self-governing structure. He smirks, correctly guessing that such a unique, independent nation is likely not a peaceful place. Alice confirms his suspicion, stating that the security situation is terrible and Urea is home to countless criminal organizations. She continues, adding that Urea has no official knights or soldiers, and since there are no records of entries or exits, people can move about freely. This, she concludes, makes it the perfect place for them to lay low. He agrees with her assessment, acknowledging that given their circumstances, an outlaw town would be easier to navigate. Alice adds that, as a side benefit, Urea's economy is quite good due to low tariffs and active trade. He considers that they might even find the repair materials they need for the car there. With a decisive, all right, he sets Urea as their destination. Alice calculates that while the journey normally takes 10 days, they can cut the time in half to 5 days by traveling through a dangerous zone. She confidently signaled her intent to take the dangerous route. Jack, however, was far from convinced, warning her that the path was filled with powerful monsters and was tantamount to a suicide wish. He questioned her boldness, asking for the reason behind her decision. In response, she held up 3 fingers, explaining that there were 3 reasons for her confidence. The first, she stated, was that with Jack now accompanying her, they could traverse the danger zone without issue. She elaborated on his strength, pointing out that he was completely off the charts. For context, she explained that even the great heroes weren't as high level as him, and the knight commander he had defeated was around level 70, whereas a level of 40 was considered impressive for an average soldier. Jack seemed genuinely surprised by this assessment. Continuing her explanation, she revealed her second reason. She wanted to level up. By defeating powerful monsters, her own level, physical abilities, and mana pool would increase. Jack conceded the point. Her third reason, she added with a glint in her eye, was that monster remains could also be used to make bomb materials, a prospect that immediately piqued his interest. He prompted her to continue, and she detailed the various uses for monster remains. While typically used for weapons, they could also serve as bomb materials. Some monsters, she noted, have blood that works like explosives, and carapace shards that can pierce tough armor. As an alchemist, she knew that their high affinity with magic made them highly versatile for imbuing with spells. Listening to her speak so passionately, he found himself reassessing his initial impression of her. He had thought she was the quiet type, but now realized she was far more expressive, especially when discussing her specialty. As they drove deeper into the forested path, Alice noticed a change in his demeanor and asked what was wrong. He gave her a thumbs up, confirming they would take the shortest route, but his expression quickly soured. Looking in the side mirror, he muttered that they were being persistently followed by two vehicles that must have tailed them from the city. His focus immediately shifted to combat. He remarked that it would be good to have something to fight with, and Alice, ever prepared, handed him a rifle, noting that she had already loaded it. Thanking her for her consideration, he told her to hang on tight to avoid the car taking extra damage as he stepped out onto the road, watching the pursuers closely. As the soldiers in the lead truck opened fire, their shots going wide, he took a steady aim. He scoffed at the poor training of these otherworld soldiers, promising to show them the real deal. With a grim smile, he wondered aloud who was the hunter and who was the hunted. With a confident smirk, Jack Aaron takes aim at an approaching military truck, declaring his intent to teach its occupants a lesson on the difference in their power levels. A tear gas bomb clatters across the ground, its effects quickly filling the soldier's vehicle. As they begin to choke, Jack's partner laughs from a distance, taunting the bomb maniacs to go wash their faces and wait for him. As the disoriented soldiers stumble out of the truck, Jack Aaron leaps down upon them from above, weapon in hand. The armored men can only look up in stunned disbelief. He lands with brutal force, crushing one soldier's skull beneath his boot. Nearby, his partner wipes blood from his own face, remarking that high-level scaling has the drawback of making it hard to control his strength, which messes with his visibility despite how exhilarating it is. Before another guard can fully process the carnage, Jack is on him, a hand clamped around his throat. He quietly tells the terrified man not to make a scene, promising it will be over instantly. A sharp crack follows. With that threat neutralized, Jack's partner turns to the remaining soldiers, eagerly challenging them to attack. The guards, now panicked, plead with him to calm down as he lunges forward. He thanks them for waiting before firing his weapon at point-blank range, obliterating another soldier's head. Surveying the aftermath of their swift victory, he hums thoughtfully. He then turns to Jack, who is inspecting the fallen, and suggests it's time to gather their loot. He carries a heavy crate towards their vehicle, remarking on their impressive haul. He calls out to Alice in the driver's seat for help, and she replies confidently, telling him to leave it to her. In response, the golem car transforms. Two massive, dark, articulated arms erupt from its rear, reaching for the crate as both Jack and his partner stare, utterly stunned by the display. He watches the golem car's massive arms retract, then settles into the driver's seat, remarking on the convenience of the display. It makes him want to study magic. Alice, however, bluntly informs him that he unfortunately has no magical capability at all. He sarcastically thanks her for the thorough diagnosis, claiming he's now totally given up on the idea. From the back seat, his partner chimes in, telling Jack that Alice is being serious. Alice confirms this, observing that for someone to be at such a high level and still lack magical power, he must truly have no aptitude for it. With the discussion settled, their golem car plows ahead, crashing through the dense, untamed wilderness. As they bounce along the rugged terrain, he questions if they're still heading towards Urea, pointing out that the path is so overgrown he doubts it's a road at all. Alice calmly assures him that she is positive. To explain her certainty, she holds up a small, glowing magical lantern. She clarifies that this item points them in the exact direction they need to go, guaranteeing they're taking the shortest possible route. While the golem car's arms forage for useful things like materials and food in the surrounding woods, Alice explains its function. Seeing that the vehicle is handling itself, Jack decides to use the time to make some bombs, leaving the driving to her. She wishes him luck with his work. He uses a device to craft a high-grade nerve gas bomb, reflecting internally that while the process is normally nerve-wracking, his skill makes it easy even under these conditions, a skill he'd love to take back to his own world. Alice asks if his work is going well, and he confirms that it is. His attention then turns to crafting a bow and arrows. Alice remarks on his skill, prompting his partner to ask if he was an archer. Jack clarifies that he wasn't, having only used them a few times for work, but finds it's always handy to have them ready. He holds up one of the arrows, explaining his plan. By attaching a small bomb, he can create a makeshift bomb launcher. He notes that it would have been nice if the soldiers had carried some, but since they didn't, he's making his own. Alice points out that he could probably throw the bomb further by hand. He concedes the point, but explains that using the arrow will provide much greater accuracy when aiming for a specific target. His partner, eager after seeing the newly crafted weapons, expressed a desire to test them out immediately. But as he spoke, Jack, perched atop the golem car, noticed something moving through the trees ahead. His attention suddenly diverted. The source of the movement revealed itself. A colossal praying mantis, its form towering between the trees. From his vantage point, Jack identified it as a forest monster, while Alice watched from inside the vehicle. Alice calmly provided details on the creature, explaining that it possessed the strength to match a full squad of knights. She added that its side-like forelegs could pierce armor, and its shell was tougher than metal. Jack expressed his disbelief that such a formidable beast roamed the wild. As the monster drew closer, he decisively told Alice to stop the car. When she questioned if he intended to fight it, he confirmed, stating that it was just the right target he needed. He reasoned that close combat was too risky, especially if the golem car or Alice got caught in the fray. Believing he could brute force a victory, he knocked one of his bomb arrows, declaring he would take the creature down. Before he could fire, Alice called out for him to wait. She reached up from the car's window, her hand glowing as she cast an enchantment spell directly onto the arrowhead. With a flash of light, she informed him that the arrow was now enhanced. She explained her reasoning. By providing support, she would also be able to gain experience points, proposing it as an effective method for leveling up. Jack, understanding her logic, smirked and agreed it was a good idea. With her spell active, he released the arrow. It flew with a powerful whoosh, far faster and stronger than he had anticipated. He realized in that moment the true potency of Alice's supporting magic as the projectile closed in on the screeching monster. The enchanted arrow struck true, piercing the monster's tough exoskeleton and staggering it. Though wounded, the creature was still alive. Alice offered him a knife, but he declined, stating with grim determination that he would make this easy for her. He drew his bow again, this time aiming for the head. The second arrow flew straight and struck the monster's eye, the force of the impact causing its head to explode in a shower of gore, ending the threat for good. He casually twirls the bow, feeling a surge of confidence after their victory. Alice looks up at him, expressing her belief that someone like him could probably make it to the top. He boasts that he might have a knack for archery and could even take it up as a new line of work if he ever ran out of money. With a laugh, he dismisses the praise, reminding her that his true expertise lies with bombs. Their attention then shifts to the fallen creature. Alice wonders aloud if its carcass could be used as a material for something. He confirms it can, instructing that they should collect the parts, as it's important to take care of their resources. The thrilling drive continues under the pale moonlight as the golem car speeds through a narrow, rocky canyon. From atop a crude wooden barricade, a horde of goblins cackles with anticipation, brandishing their clubs for an ambush. Inside, Jack Aaron's expression hardens as he spots the creatures. Alice explains that goblins are monsters known for attacking in groups. Without a word, he tosses an improvised hand grenade, which detonates near the barricade. As the explosion rocks the vehicle, Alice alerts him that she can hear another monster approaching. Her warning comes just in time as a giant wild boar charges them, its eyes glowing fiercely. Jack realizes the grenade wasn't enough for this new foe. Alice notes that a boar of this size will not stop charging until it's brought down, and a direct collision would be catastrophic. The golem car's armor forms to meet the attack, but the boar's tusk shatters it on impact. The force of the blow sends the car skidding away. The boar remains standing, unfazed. Jack grimly observes that the golem armor is useless against the high-level monsters here. Alice agrees and pulls out a vial, a prototype magic explosive. She declares it's time to test it. She hurls the vial, which erupts in a massive, fiery explosion that completely engulfs the beast. Jack laughs, impressed by the power of what he calls a bullshit recipe bomb. Alice, however, looks concerned, wondering why it was so effective. She cautions that poorly crafted items can misfire and produce unpredictable effects, suggesting they were merely lucky. As she speaks, a new, serpentine threat emerges from the trees. The snake-like monster lunges forward. Finding the relentless assault interesting, Jack takes aim with a large-caliber pistol. In the chaos, other creatures, like a large wolf, join the fray as the golem car speeds away from the scene. He sighs, looking out at the receding battlefield. He remarks that it's like a monster parade, making a relaxing camp impossible. He expresses relief that their vehicle has an autopilot function. With the autopilot engaged, the conversation turns to the results of their recent battles. Jack notes that thanks to his involvement, Alice's level must be rising quickly. He then asks her what level she has reached. In response, she materializes a status screen displaying her information. Level 28 Alchemist. She explains that before their journey, she was only level 21, meaning she has risen by 7 levels. His reaction is one of disbelief. Only, he asks. Alice clarifies that, generally speaking, a 7-level increase is a very steep rise. She then adds that Jack himself is an exception to this rule, leaving him stunned and speechless. He laughs, brushing off the significance of his high level. Alice clarifies that the experience required to level up increases exponentially, which is why she only gained a single level. Realizing his oversight, he scratches his head in mild embarrassment. In response, She presents him with a newly enchanted item, explaining that the effects of her enchantments have improved. She tells him she is counting on him. As the more monsters he defeats, the stronger she also becomes. He accepts, thinking to himself that it's good Alice is getting stronger. He has no intention of treating her like a princess who needs coddling. His thoughts continue. They're simply partners with aligned interests. While he does intend to protect her as much as possible, he acknowledges that unforeseen circumstances are always a possibility. He concludes that it would be for the best if she could learn to survive on her own, without his lead. As he drives, he casually tosses a small object out of the car. The object he tossed detonates in the distance, briefly lighting up the dark, rocky terrain. He mutters to himself that he isn't particularly suited for escort missions. As they continue through the now quiet landscape, he remarks on the silence, but warns Alice not to let her guard down. His expression remains tense and watchful. She then presents another of her creations, an improvised hand grenade, now imbued with the psychosis attribute. She explains that this added property will allow it to affect enemies who are immune to physical attacks. Jack looks on, impressed by its utility. After a moment of quiet driving, Alice breaks the silence with an unexpected question, asking Jack if he has decided on a method for destroying the world. She answers for him, stating that she hasn't decided yet. She calmly elaborates that completely destroying the world is an incredibly difficult task, citing the fact that even the wars during the Age of the Gods failed to wipe out human history as proof. She notes that while humanity may seem fragile, it is surprisingly resilient. Hearing this, Jack ponders the concept of destroying the world. It's a goal he's only ever encountered in stories, and he never dreamed he would one day be involved in such an endeavor. He considers the sheer scale of her ambition, wondering if it's even possible. While Alice might see his skills as useful, he recognizes that this is a task on a completely different level than simply destroying a city. His skepticism, however, quickly morphs into a dark fascination. The idea of witnessing a world-destroying bomb intrigues him, especially since he believes he can return to his own world before it detonates, making it a risk-free spectacle. He sees it as a grand way to pass the time. Alice, noticing his sudden change in demeanor, calls out his name in question. In response, he turns to her with a manic, wide-eyed grin and gives an enthusiastic thumbs up. She observes thoughtfully that it seems she will be relying on his help a great deal. He quickly assures her that the arrangement will be mutually beneficial. He then adds a crucial condition to their partnership. She must not forget about the return magic. For him, he stresses, it is a matter of life and death. Alice calmly agrees to his terms. She tests the waters, suggesting that if she were to slack off, he likely wouldn't cooperate. His expression darkens instantly. He confirms her suspicion with a menacing tone, warning that he despises being underestimated and might make things unpleasant for her. His threatening demeanor vanishes as quickly as it appeared. He waves a hand dismissively, claiming it was all a joke and that his conscience prevents him from harming women and children. Alice, unconvinced, remarks that it clearly wasn't a joke, but chooses not to press the issue. To formalize their pact, he reaches out his hand, stating that he is counting on her. She meets his gaze seriously, assuring him she has no intention of betrayal and looks forward to their collaboration. He echoes her sentiment. With the agreement settled, she says then, and raises her hands, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. Jack watches her, a look of weary amusement on his face. She raises her hand for a high five, which Jack returns. He remarks that she wanted it for no reason, but she counters that it was an important moment to commemorate their new partnership. She points out that he was the one who suggested it, only to question it now. He explains that since they'll be working together long-term, establishing some trust is vital. A partnership focused only on benefits is bound to fail, as humans are beings with feelings. He sees their ability to open up to each other as a good sign, noting that calculations alone can't keep one alive. Intrigued, Alice says she would love to hear about the world he came from. As he ponders where to even begin, a winged silhouette crosses the face of the full moon in the dark night sky. The winged shape swoops lower, catching his eye. Startled, he questions if what he's seeing is real. A heavy thud echoes from outside the vehicle. It landed directly in their path. The golem car screeches to a halt as Jack stares up in utter disbelief at the colossal creature blocking the road. The creature is revealed in its entirety, a massive dragon, smoke curling from its nostrils as it stands silhouetted against the moon. Its glowing eyes glare down. This is a living calamity, the ultimate predator of this world. Inside the car, terror grips Jack. He realizes they must run immediately, or they're going to die. Inside their vehicle, Jack Aaron grins with manic amusement as the colossal dragon looms before them. The golem car skids to a halt, dust kicking up around it. He casually suggests he should rotate the vehicle for his companion, Alice. He leaps from the car, facing the beast head-on. With a wide grin, he remarks that in a world of magic and monsters, it's only fitting that they would encounter a dragon. He accepts the challenge with relish, declaring it fair enough. He instructs Alice to set the vehicle to self-driving, leaving its control to her. Without another word, he charges forward, aiming a crossbow-like weapon directly at the dragon's eye. The creature rears back, startled by the sudden aggression. His shot strikes the dragon's head, erupting in a small but potent explosion. The beast stumbles back from the impact, landing gracefully. Jack momentarily wonders if his attack was enough to fell the creature. The smoke clears to reveal the dragon is virtually unharmed. Frustration contorts Jack's face as he curses the beast's ridiculous toughness, wishing aloud for a rocket launcher. From the car, Alice quietly questions the unfamiliar term. Alice explains that dragons possess natural defensive magic woven into their scales. She clarifies that his magic-infused bullets and explosive arrows are considered half-hearted attacks against such a foe, capable only of leaving a small burn. She laments their bad luck in encountering such a creature here, but Jack's expression is one of pure excitement. He smirks, remarking that he had been under the impression that only monsters he could easily defeat inhabited this area. He taunts the recovering dragon as it begins to charge. With a gleam in his eye, he sarcastically asks if they should take a commemorative photo, expressing his delight that the beast came all this way just to see him. From the driver's seat, he prepares another explosive projectile. Calling the creature a bad boy, he launches the attack, which detonates directly against the dragon's chest in a blast of fire and dark energy. The force of the explosion shoves the golem car backward, jostling Jack violently inside. He cries out in pain, but his shock turns to disbelief as the dragon emerges from the smoke, completely unscathed. He can only curse the creature's impossible resilience. He grunts in frustration as the dragon's deafening roar sends their vehicle skidding backward across the ground. Cursing the beast, he refuses to be defeated by what he considers a mere giant lizard. He reminds himself that he is the bomb maniac who once obliterated an entire city and will not lose now. With a defiant cry, he hurls a handful of small canisters directly into the dragon's face, yelling for it to take its food. The dragon recoils, momentarily stunned as gas billows from its nostrils. He laughs maniacally, taunting the creature about the taste of his tear gas and fireball mixture. As flames engulf the dragon's head, he even offers to share the recipe. Alice warns him that this is no time for boasting, but he dismisses her, declaring his attack a demonstration of humanity's true power. Her warning becomes urgent as she asks if he can't see what lies directly in front of them. His triumphant expression dissolves into shock as the dragon prepares a fiery counterattack. A torrent of destructive energy erupts from the beast's maw, carving a massive, smoking chasm into the earth where the road once was. Having cleared the blast zone, he remarks with grim sarcasm that he hadn't noticed the new crack in the ground. Alice, however, is deeply unsettled, stating that she only sees a cliff they never passed and questions if he is imagining things. He glances in the rearview mirror, seeing the dragon still looming behind them. Realizing their luck has run out, he states that diving off the cliff is out of the question. Their only chance is to swerve into the forest and pray they make it through. He could only curse as the dragon descended upon them, its massive claws tearing into the golem car. Their escape through the forest had failed. It was no use, Alice reported grimly. She had lost control of the golems. The cores of the ones in the rear had been crushed, preventing them from transforming. Hearing this, Jack felt a wave of despair, remarking that he felt like crying. Alice could only add that this was supposed to have been a romantic drive. As they grappled with their grim situation, the dragon loomed over the wrecked vehicle, its shadow eclipsing them completely. The beast's claw slammed down, crushing the front of the car and sending a violent shockwave through the chassis. Jack cried out from the force of the impact. His face hardened with resolve. Clenching his fist, he roared a challenge, telling the damn lizard to go to hell. With a defiant roar, he launched himself forward and delivered a staggering punch directly to the dragon's snout. He knew their weapons were useless. This was the only option left. Refusing to be treated like a toy, he put all his strength into the blow. The force of the blow sent the colossal dragon stumbling backward, its head snapping back in shock. Jack landed back on the car, laughing triumphantly. He had done it. Alice cried out his name, stunned, as he boasted that the power difference was better than he expected. But their victory was cut short. The ground beneath them, already fractured by the dragon's earlier assault, gave way. As the car tipped over the edge, Jack realized with horror that they were falling. One disaster had passed, only for another to begin. The aftermath is one of undeniable defeat. Jack Aaron is slammed into the ground, the impact rattling him to his core. Nearby, Alice lies motionless, a casualty of the overwhelming assault. Pushing himself up, he glances at his former partner, also down in the chaos. Jack crouches on the hood of their damaged vehicle, grabbing the man's hair. He can only mutter at how pathetic the situation is, a sentiment mirrored in his partner's exhausted gaze. His attention then shifts to Alice. He has moved her to rest on the car and administered first aid, carefully bandaging her limbs. He considers that for a fall from such a height, her injuries are surprisingly light, though she remains unconscious. He takes a moment to check his own body, noticing a wound on his hand is already starting to vanish. He recognizes this rapid healing as a product of level correction, a helpful but unreliable phenomenon. Looking back at Alice, he surmises her survival was due to her magic cushioning the impact, combined with the physical enhancement from her own level-ups. He acknowledges her resilience, a testament to the 30 years of experience she has as an alchemist, as he searches through their supplies. Later, finding shelter in a cave, he tries to eat a ration bar. The taste is so foul he nearly gags, feeling as if something is eating his brain. He curses the dragon, the lizard bastard responsible for their plight. His mind replays the disastrous battle. The dragon was simply on another level. Ranged attacks were useless against it. Bullets and bombs were deflected with ease. Even his special mix of explosives and fire failed to inflict any significant damage. He clenches his fist, remembering the one and only blow that connected, a single lucky punch. But it was futile. He couldn't get close enough to land another before being overwhelmed. The mercenary contemplates his disadvantage. Against a flying dragon, his firepower is pitifully inadequate. From a distance, his best hope is a lucky shot. He thinks of the weapons from his world, a fighter jet, a rocket launcher. Complaining about what he doesn't have is pointless. He realizes he will have to create the tools he needs himself. Sitting on the roof of the golem car, with Alice still unconscious beside him, a cold resolve hardens his features. He will not forgive that dragon. He makes a silent vow. The next time they meet, he will be the one to end it. He drives through the darkness, a grim smile spreading across his face as he imagines his revenge. Roasting the dragon whole, he thinks, would be a magnificent feast. The golem car rumbles onward, its headlights cutting through the gloom of a watery cave. Finally, he brings the vehicle to a halt, turning the key in the ignition. Stepping out into the shallow water, his expression sours with annoyance as he assesses their situation. He opens a rear compartment, revealing a cache of supplies. He stares at them for a moment, lost in thought. His gaze shifts to Alice, still unconscious in the passenger seat. He reflects that magic-based vehicles are no match for his own creation. But for now, all he can do is wait for her to awaken. With a grunt, he puts his shoulder to the vehicle, attempting to push it free from the water. He realizes he pushed too hard. Looking from the now lodged car to the still unconscious Alice, he stands beside the supplies he's managed to unload onto a dry patch of ground. He gently checks on Alice, draping a cloth over her. It will be a while before she recovers, he surmises. He understands that brute force alone won't be enough to deal with the magic-based monsters that are coming. Settling down by a lantern, he decides that while they have the food and water, he will use the time to study magic. He admits to himself that it's hard to learn new things at his age, but the situation leaves him no other choice. His expression hardens, his resolve solidifying as the memory of the dragon's hateful eye burns in his mind. His brief respite is shattered by the sound of approaching footsteps. Crouching beside the unconscious Alice, he tenses, his gaze fixed on the darkness of the cave tunnel. He silently warns whatever is coming not to approach, whether it be human or monster. From the shadows emerge not monsters, but a trio of stout, bearded figures in horned helmets. The one in the lead holds a glowing lantern and a hefty axe, his expression grim as they advance deeper into the cavern. He assesses the newcomers, a group of bearded men armed with what appear to be firearms. He realizes that engaging them would be a considerable risk. A gunfight must be avoided, as a stray shot could easily hit Alice inside the vehicle. His mind races. Returning to his own world is paramount. He watches their movements, deciding that if they prove to be enemies, he will have to eliminate them swiftly. The lead dwarf seems to share his caution, recognizing that fighting in these close quarters is a high-risk endeavor for them as well. A tense silence hangs in the air as both sides weigh their options. The standoff breaks as the dwarf leader demands to know who he is and why he is there. He explains that this is the domain of the dwarves and asks if Jack is a poacher. Jack raises his rifle, but quickly decides against aggression, opting for a different approach. He lowers his weapon and raises a hand, calling for them to wait. With a strained, placating smile, he insists that it's all a misunderstanding and that he is certainly not a poacher. The dwarves watch him, their suspicion unwavering. Beginning his explanation, he tells the dwarves that he was attacked by a dragon in the valley. He gestures toward his vehicle, explaining that he managed to escape the beast with his golem car. He clarifies that he didn't seek out their territory, but simply washed up here by chance. He then makes a proposition. If they guide him to the surface, he will tell them how he repelled the dragon. The dwarves exchange skeptical glances, questioning if he is telling the truth. He assures them he has proof. As evidence, he points to a massive, sharp object embedded in the front of his vehicle. He declares that it's a piece of a dragon's claw. The dwarves gasp in astonishment. Their leader asks to see it up close, and Jack agrees, telling them to examine it as much as they like, free of charge. The dwarves eagerly crowd around the vehicle to inspect the incredible artifact. He finds himself surrounded by dwarves, their initial hostility replaced by a clamor of excited questions. One demands to see the dragon's claw, while their leader, his eyes wide, asks how he could have possibly obtained such a thing. Jack calmly explains that it was a souvenir he picked up after repelling the beast, stunning the dwarves into silence. In response to their disbelief, he flexes his bicep. He admits that while he might not look trustworthy, he has the strength to back up his words and fully intends to finish the job next time. The dwarves exchange stunned glances, finding his claim of fighting a dragon alone hard to believe. One of them voices their collective doubt, asking if he is truly serious. He nonchalantly confirms it, referring to the dragon as a lizard bastard of the Eugen Jicker type. He adds that he simply decided to roast it. A confident, almost predatory grin spreads across his face as he declares his intention to hunt the creature down and blow it to pieces. The dwarf leader's attention shifts from Jack's bold claims to the vehicle behind him. He gestures toward the unconscious figure inside and asks if that is his wife. He corrects the dwarf, explaining that the woman is his business partner, not his wife, and that she was injured during their fall from the cliff. The dwarf leader expresses sympathy for their misfortune, acknowledging that being attacked by a dragon is a terrible ordeal, and offers them a place to rest in the dwarven village. Looking back at the car, Jack confirms that his partner is unconscious, but that their vehicle is functional. He believes they can make it to the village to get things sorted out. The dwarf leader holds up a hand, stating that while he is willing to help, he cannot do so for free. He asks what Jack is offering in return for their hospitality and assistance. His gaze falls upon a massive dragon claw resting on the car's hood. He proposes a trade, a piece of the claw in exchange for their help. He watched as the lead dwarf inspected the offered fragment. The dwarf acknowledged that it was a rare material, explaining that even a thumb-sized piece could be used as a panacea and was of immense value. A slight smirk crossed Jack's face. With the deal struck, Jack declared the dwarf a man who understands. The dwarves then gave the order to move out, agreeing to escort them immediately to their settlement, and the group began their journey through the rocky terrain. In a rocky, subterranean passage, a group of dwarves assists Jack Aaron in maneuvering his vehicle up a steep incline. One of the dwarves, concerned, asks if he can manage the slope. Jack, looking weary, confirms that he can. The vehicle, identified as the Wrecker Bomb Demons, is hauled forward with thick ropes. As they work, the dwarves marvel at Jack's physique, commenting on his monstrous strength and impressive muscles. Their chatter is cut short when one of them barks in order for the others to stop gawking and keep moving. He offers a quick apology for the trouble, but the dwarves wave it off, assuring him it's no issue and that they can continue on without needing to retreat. Despite their apparent friendliness, he internally resolves not to let his guard down. He concludes that it would be wise to get on good terms with the dwarves before they reach the settlement that lies ahead. His thoughts are interrupted when a dwarf gestures towards the car, where Alice is sleeping under a blanket. The dwarf asks if they were heading somewhere specific. Jack explains their goal was the independent nation of Yulia and questions if it's possible to reach it through the forest. The dwarf remarks on the audacity of such a plan, but concedes that with their demonstrated power, it might not be impossible. Their journey is abruptly halted as a swarm of pale, slug-like monsters emerges from the cavern walls. One of the dwarves shouts an alert. Another rallies his kin, declaring it a big catch for the evening's feast and urging them not to let any escape. As the dwarves fiercely engage the creatures, Jack notes their sheer numbers and offers to help. A dwarf, busy fighting, tells him it's fine and instructs him to protect the young lady in the car instead. With a grateful salute, Jack agrees. With the path cleared, the group finally arrives at their destination. Jack shields his eyes as he gazes up at a sprawling settlement built into the cavern's massive walls. A dwarf beside him proudly announces, "We're here." The dwarven city is an impressive sight, a network of stone buildings, glowing lanterns, and a large water wheel, all nestled within a colossal cavern. Through a large opening in the ceiling, a full moon shines down. One of his guides gestures to the settlement, formally welcoming him. "This is the home of the dwarves," he says. "Take your time and relax." Jack stares, his expression a mixture of awe and surprise. He watches the dwarves, who murmur amongst themselves about what a human is doing in their settlement. He reflects on his experience with such closed-off communities. They rarely welcome outsiders, especially humans. With no information on their customs, he worries he might be driven away again. One of the dwarves, seemingly their leader, gets his attention, stating that there may be races outside who dislike humans. He points, instructing Jack that they must first go to their elder to discuss the situation. Heeding the instruction, he follows the group through the settlement. He internally agrees that they likely won't be kicked out immediately and voices his assent, seeing no reason to object. The group soon arrives at a large, horned building. The dwarf guide explains that this is the elder's home, which is also used for regular meetings. Seeing Alice, still unconscious on Jack's shoulder, the dwarf asks if she needs treatment first, but Jack declines, preferring to proceed with the meeting. He glances down at Alice, thinking that while he doesn't trust the dwarves, this is a necessary risk. He resolves that as long as he is by her side, he can protect her no matter what happens, especially given the volatile nature of her abilities. He decides this course of action is fine. With his decision made, he hands his bag to a dwarf, telling him to watch his luggage. The dwarf accepts, assuring him they won't steal anything and that he can rest easy. Jack waves in acknowledgement, entrusting his belongings to them. The lead dwarf remarks on the surprisingly good atmosphere, noting the absence of the typical malice he'd expect. He asks Jack if he's feeling ill. With a dark intensity, Jack clarifies that while he avoids pointless violence, he will be merciless if his luggage is touched. The dwarf seems to understand, acknowledging him as their guest. They are then led inside a hall. At the far end, a venerable dwarf with a long white beard and dark glasses sits upon a raised seat, holding a staff. The guide, looking somewhat nervous, gestures for Jack to take a seat on a stool before the elder. The figure on the throne speaks, identifying Jack as a human man and Alice as a girl. He asks for their names. Jack introduces himself and Alice, explaining that one of the dwarf sons had helped them when they were found adrift in the caverns. The elder studies him, thinking that they've brought in a dangerous man. His gaze shifts to Alice, and he perceives a soul dwelling within her. Jack looks puzzled, wondering what he means by a soul. The elder concludes his assessment. Jack is clumsy and straightforward, but with an almost pure sincerity. He began by stating that he had no intention of asking about the outside world, as the dwarves had little interest in worldly affairs. Looking directly at Jack Aaron, the elder noted that Jack didn't seem to be pursuing them, and bluntly asked what a drifter like him wanted. He explained that he had come seeking treatment for his injured companion and repairs for his vehicle. With a slight grin, he added that it wouldn't be free, of course, and that he was prepared to pay a fair price for their services. Meanwhile, the other dwarf reported to the elder that Jack had encountered a dragon, which led to them falling into the underground caverns. As proof, he presented a fragment of a dragon's claw. The elder took the sharp, dark shard, confirming its origin. He then questioned Jack, asking if he had simply found the item by chance. The elder stated he didn't believe in such convenient coincidences, revealing that he himself had taken it from that lizard bastard. Looking exhausted, Jack retorted that his vehicle had been destroyed in the process, making it a painful trade. The elder fell silent for a moment, contemplating the claw fragment in his hand. He murmured to himself, thinking about that specific dragon. Jack clarified that his encounter with the beast had occurred about 10 days prior. The elder then elaborated on the situation. The dragon, he explained, was an outcast from its pack and had made its lair in the nearby mountains. It now roamed the vicinity, preying on whatever it could find and causing significant damage to the dwarven settlement. His gaze shifted back to Jack, who still carried Alice. The elder's tone was suggestive, implying that Jack should understand the situation and that it would be better to observe him. Sensing the manipulation, Jack's brow furrowed as he asked what the elder was trying to say. Suddenly, Jack's patience snapped. He lunged forward and grabbed the other dwarf by his robes, demanding to know if they expected him to praise them for this. The startled dwarf cried out for him to stop, but Jack angrily retorted that his own clan was caught in the middle of this. He shoved the dwarf aside and confronted the elder directly. He declared that he didn't care about the elder's title and that he hated being used. If the elder had a request, Jack demanded, he should just say it plainly. Unfazed by the outburst, the elder simply replied, "That was my bad." His demand for clarity was met not with words, but with sudden violence. A blonde-haired dwarf lunged, a dagger flashing towards him. With swift reflexes, he caught the attacker's wrist, but another guard with a horn helmet was already moving in low, blade at the ready. He twisted the blonde dwarf's arm back, pressing the muzzle of his pistol against their head. The attacker, caught in his grip, warned him not to move, stating that his vision would be impaired and that he shouldn't dirty the floor. The elder watched the confrontation unfold. He held his position, tense and ready, only to be met with the sound of the elder's hearty laughter echoing through the room. The guard stood down, and Jack's expression shifted from combat readiness to pure bewilderment. The elder calmly explained his actions, offering a disingenuous apology for the test. He stated his belief that the fastest way to truly understand a person is to exchange blows with them. Jack, seething with anger, could only grit out a curse at the old man. Unfazed by the mercenary's fury, the elder chuckled, remarking that he hadn't expected such an intense reaction. He noted that the dwarves are a belligerent people, a fact that seemed to trouble one of his aides, who watched the exchange with concern. His anger simmered as the elder's words sank in. He realized with a jolt that he had been manipulated into this fight without any warning or consent. The elder's demeanor shifted to one of approval. He praised Jack as a magnificent warrior, one whose skill transcended mere levels. With a broad gesture, he officially welcomed the mercenary to the dwarven settlement, the impromptu immigration assessment now complete. Jack could only think of what a nuisance this all was, a sentiment shared by the elder's aide, who lamented his superior's constant recklessness. In a dimly lit room, Alice's eyes flutter open. She awakens in an unfamiliar bed, a look of confusion on her face as she slowly sits up, wondering where she is. Beside the bed, Jack Aaron keeps a watchful, silent vigil. He turns from his seat at a small table, a lantern casting a warm glow on his face. Noticing she is awake, he greets her casually, asking if she managed to get some good rest. Her gaze meets his, her initial confusion clearing. She offers him a quiet good morning, addressing him by name. He leans forward with a slight smile, his expression softening as he asks how she is feeling. She replies that she isn't feeling bad, but notes that her arm is broken. Jack apologizes, blaming himself for the injury she sustained when they fell from the cliff, admitting he didn't handle the situation well. Alice quickly dismisses his apology, insisting it isn't his fault and reassuring him that an injury like this is something she can heal right away. Following her words, she sits up on the edge of the bed and begins to unwrap the splint and bandages from her forearm. Jack watches, a look of surprise crossing his face at her confident actions. As the last of the bandages come away, a soft green light envelopes her arm, knitting bone and flesh back together. She explains that it is recovery magic, revealing that she was the third healer in her former party. Jack stares, stunned by the display of what he can only assume is magic. Shaking off his astonishment, he moves to a nearby window and throws it open with a grin. He cheerfully announces that they are in a dwarven settlement. They both gaze out at the settlement, a collection of sturdy buildings nestled within a vast cavern. Jack explains that the dwarves lent them an empty house after they were washed out of an underground cavern. Alice remarks that it makes sense the dwarves would take a liking to him. He turns back into the room, gesturing with a proud smirk toward the table laden with food and supplies. He jokes that for someone who has become a hero, he has received quite a lot of presents. He looks over the provisions, remarking that it's an incredible amount of food, far more than they can eat. He adds that the dwarves are planning a feast for them the next day. Alice, processing this, asks if the celebration is for the dragon's defeat. He clarifies that the elder had requested their help because the dragon had taken over a nearby mountain, forcing the dwarves to flee. Since he accepted the job to deal with the lizard bastard, the elder, being a man of his word, has promised to fully cooperate with them. This includes repairing their vehicle, crafting weapons, and even negotiating the return of the dragon's claw. Having finally gotten his hands on some alcohol and tobacco, he lights a cigarette with a small flame from his finger. He leans back, exhaling a plume of smoke in pure satisfaction. The world, he muses, doesn't seem so bad after all, especially with what he suspects are medicinal herbs mixed in. He turns to Alice, asking if she'd like a drink. After a moment's hesitation, she agrees to have just a little. As he pours her a glass, he asks what they should toast to. She raises her glass, suggesting they toast to the fleeting fate of the dragon. He agrees it's a perfect toast, and their glasses clink together. Outside, the dwarves are already hard at work on the golem car, using magic stones to power their tools. Jack watches them, surprised at how well the different craftsmen are cooperating. He asks Alice if the repairs are proceeding as planned, and she confirms they are, though she admits to having one small concern. She explains that having the dwarves' assistance is incredibly helpful. The high quality ore found in the region means they can do more than just repair the vehicle. They can actually upgrade its performance. He smiles, telling her he's looking forward to the results. She turns to him with a determined look, reminding him that he needs to do his part as well. With that, he gets to work, kneeling beside a large wooden crate and beginning to sort through his equipment and supplies. He sat amidst a collection of materials, both those he had gathered and those supplied by the dwarves, his focus entirely on crafting bombs for the dragon. His first priority, he mused while studying his notes, was raw destructive power. If he could just clear a path, that would be enough. As he worked, Alice approached, asking how his production was faring. He looked up and explained his progress, showing her the new dragon fong bombs. He had utilized fragments of the dragon's fong and combined them with a magic-inducting fluid to successfully create a high-powered, self-detonating bomb. It was not bad, he thought. He then presented another creation, an adhesive bomb. He explained that since the dwarves had provided a special slime that produced a sticky fluid, he had embedded a pull-type bomb within it. Alice, nibbling on a snack, added that the adhesive was weak against magic, which would make subsequent magical attacks more effective. She considered the implications, theorizing that the bombs could be used to weaken the dragon's defenses, following that with a magic-enhanced bomb would be even more effective. Yet, her expression grew serious as another concern came to mind. He prompted her to continue, and she explained that while slimes could be used in bombs, they shouldn't result in something so powerful. She wondered about the specific mixture ratio he had used. Jack casually pointed to the array of ingredients, stating he had simply mixed this with that. Alice stared, utterly speechless. The realization struck her. This was an outcome only possible because of Jack's unique skills. She couldn't comprehend how he had managed to create it. In the background, he simply laughed. His amusement faded into a more serious expression. He admitted that he also found it difficult. Handling bombs in this world was different. He had to judge the materials solely by their components and effects, without his usual frame of reference. Unbound by convention, he decided to simply try making a variety of prototypes, and to his surprise, they were all completed successfully. To demonstrate his point, they moved outside. As he tossed a small device into the air, he explained that without calculating the material ratios correctly, one couldn't achieve the desired effect or power. The device detonated with a harmless puff. Watching the result, Alice understood. Jack's skill, Bomb Creation EX++, didn't just aid in crafting. It guaranteed success, bending the very principles of the world to make it so. He met her gaze with a confident smirk, a silent acknowledgement of his extraordinary ability. He turns his attention to the heavily damaged golem car, asking Alice how the repairs are going. She confirms that the work is finished. She explains that she doubled the number of golems composing its structure from 10 to 20. This reinforcement, she notes, should prevent the malfunctions that previously arose from damage. The upgraded golem car thunders forward, its new form larger and more imposing. Jack lets out an impressed whistle as it kicks up dust. He marvels at the vehicle, amazed that such a significant update could be completed in just one day. Alice adds that it now possesses a defensive barrier and can travel on water by reshaping its magic-powered beam. Jack declares it all to be wonderful. He tells Alice that he plans to install a few more functions himself. When she asks if he has any requests for her, he grins, replying that for now, he has none. The results have already exceeded his expectations. She thanks him, visibly pleased by his praise. A nearby dwarf then tentatively asks if he can take it for a ride, and Jack readily agrees. Behind the wheel, Jack is ecstatic, shouting about how fun the vehicle is to drive as he speeds through the dwarven settlement with Alice beside him. As he steps out of the car, a dwarf rushes him, calling him Big Brother. Jack reacts instantly, twisting the dwarf's arm and slamming him to the ground. Standing over his downed opponent, he coldly asks if this is their idea of a welcome. One of the onlookers notes that Jack is holding back just enough not to kill, a technique that reminds him of military training. Another dwarf declares that the elder was right about him, and that they should all fight him to test his mettle. From a window above, the dwarf elder observes the scene. His aide asks if he truly believes Jack can defeat the dragon. The elder merely hums in contemplation, his gaze fixed on the unfolding test below. He listened as one of his kin voiced grave concerns, stating that even if they all banded together, he couldn't imagine them defeating the dragon. The dwarf continued, explaining their grim situation. The dragon's previous assault had decimated their warriors, logistics were strained, and supplies were limited. He acknowledged that Jack was strong, but the question of whether it was enough hung in the air. His words were punctuated by the sounds of the brawl below. Jack moved with brutal efficiency, tossing dwarves aside. The concerned dwarf exclaimed that Jack wasn't a man, but a monster from another world. His companion noted that their warriors had lost their nerve since the dragon's attack. The elder remained silent, his expression unreadable behind his dark glasses. His aide, seeing the despair, asked if they should simply give up, questioning if they would allow themselves to be devoured by it. From a nearby window, Alice watched the entire spectacle unfold. He was more than holding his own. With a confident smirk, Jack stood over a pile of 10 defeated dwarves, laughing. He declared that this was nothing compared to what they were truly up against. From her vantage point, Alice watched with a calm, knowing smile. Below, Jack challenged the remaining dwarves, asking who was next and proclaiming he would stand as an undefeated champion. The elder's aide worried that the fighting was dangerous, but the elder countered grimly. If they couldn't even defeat Jack, he reasoned, they would simply become food for the dragon.